Okie dokie. Yep, we got it. All right, so let's see. Let's give it a second for some people to come in. Yeah, that was long enough. All right. So we've got a couple of news stories. I'm mostly going to be wrangling all of them from Free Media, the fun channel that was a spin-off of Reason TV, and they did their own stuff. So we've got a ton of those videos. I'm gonna intersperse them with other things. We got some articles here from Dexerto, Hades 2, and Ghost of Yote come out. I just want to make a video about this and talk about them. I'm not actually going to be reading these articles. They're just here as props. And let's see, what else do we have? I've got Side Scrollers video here, which should be interesting. I've also got, we do want to finish up this video from Gary's Economics. We were doing this last time we were doing YouTube videos. So we've got the other half of this to go in. More Free Media. A money and macro thing. The economic miracle that killed millions? What? That doesn't sound like a miracle. More Free Media, and then we'll probably just jump around on this video, specifically about Gary Stevenson stuff. I've got the chapters up here, so we'll probably finish off with this if this amount of videos isn't enough to give us our full daily dose of stream time. My guess is it will be, because for some reason, every time I watch a video, I'll do literally double commentary. So this is like a 10-minute video. I'm going to make a video about this. It'll probably be 30 minutes long. Which, I mean, I guess I'm giving you value for money if you're in there for me, but if you're trying to watch the video, dear God, you must hate my face, because I'm here all the time. All right. That being said, we're going to hit the record button. Is Gavin Newsom going crazy? Trump's going to cancel the 2028 election? Apparently.
Well, Jimmy Kimmel's show isn't the only thing that got canceled. According to Gavin Newsom, the 2028 election might be canceled too if Trump gets his way. Here's what he said on Stephen Colbert's show.
We are struggling to communicate. We're struggling to win back now the majority in the House of Representatives, and that's a big part of what I'm doing, not just today in terms of the work out here, raising money, but also raising awareness around how Donald Trump is trying to rig the midterm elections and how I fear that we will not have an election in 2028. I really mean that in the core of my soul, unless we wake up to the code red, what's happening in this country, and we wake up soberly to how serious this moment is.
Yeah, that show's been canceled too. God, what an absolute loss for cable viewers and humanity at large. What a shame. Canceled. I mean, that guy, Stephen Colbert, is definitely worth $20 million a year. And obviously, you know, he still has another year, even though the show's been canceled. With guests like that giving pre-prepared political speeches, I don't know how you could possibly get rid of such a talent and such a voice of the people. Do I think Donald Trump is going to cancel the 2028 election? No. You want to know why? His party's probably going to win. So why wouldn't you have the election? Now, I'm assuming what he means by canceling, he's rigging the midterm election, and he's canceling the 2028 election. We're not going to have one. What he means is the Democrats are in a position, all the polls show this, where they're going to get annihilated. Annihilated. And good on them. I'm glad that they are ignoring all of the issues people care about. They are focusing on the issues people have decided absolutely they do not agree with en masse. A small group of super vocal lunatics who apparently comprise your base, they care about these things. Everybody else has said, no, we don't care about these things, or we totally disagree with the Democrat take on them, which is why we're abandoning the party en masse. And guess what? That's going to translate to giant election losses. And if you're going to try to tell me now, 3-4 years out, that it's going to be rigged. It's not going to be a real election. It's because you know you're going to lose and you want to somehow be able to pass the buck. You want to be able to say, oh, well, this wasn't a real election. This wasn't a real. It's like, when communism fails and it kills millions of people. Like, oh, well, I mean, this wasn't real communism. No, 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 no. You can't blame communism for that. I do, I will continue to, because it is. This is the consequences of your actions. This is the consequences of the policies that you put forward. If that means that the Democrat Party, like the Labour Party in the UK, is just getting swept into the pages of history because they no longer represent the will of the people or the will of essentially any large portion of the population, good. I'm glad. We probably do need another party to, be at odds with the Republican Party, the conservative movement, these types of things. But if the Democrat Party is not that anymore, good. Good riddance. Goodbye. See ya. I'm not surprised. I'm not shocked. I'm not even sad. But let's see. How am I wrong?
No election, 2028. It's canceled, I guess.
Yep.
Here's what I hate. I don't like Gavin Newsom.
No, me neither.
Also, what's with his voice? It sounded like he was doing an RFK impression or something like that.
Or he had a Joe Biden debate night, sort of cold.
Hopefully
not the cognitive decline.
I assume Gavin Newsom's saying everything is a calculation for running for president in 2020.
Oh, I think he's running. I think he's the front runner, maybe.
He's probably the front runner, and I'm not a fan of him. That being said, the part that bugs me about this, I think he's at red alert. I'm at like yellow alert, maybe even orange.
Oh, you
alert.
are?
Well, I mean, while I am overall using Bayesian reasoning, I 70% think we're going to have an election. 80% think we're going to have an election.
99.99% think we'll have an election.
Yeah, I'm definitely on the Robbie Suave. Yeah, 99 point. Because again, he's saying Trump is going to cancel the election. Trump's party, the Republicans, probably J.D. Vance, whoever the inheritor of the mantle of MAGA is, absolutely going to be in position of strength. They are probably going to win. Why would you cancel the election? Why wouldn't you go, oh yeah, we're just going to continue to keep power because we're doing what people wanted. We're enjoying incredible support for our, plans. And then also we have enormous moral authority with the fact that the other side is committing political violence at like the drop of a hat all the time. Yeah. I think we'll have an election. Yeah, I have a sneaking suspicion that we will.
It does. There is some room for doubt in that the current executive did try to subvert an election 2 cycles ago.
We still had the election. He just didn't agree with the outcome.
Yes, we perhaps we will have democracy.
And Hillary Clinton didn't agree with the outcome, and John Kerry didn't agree with the outcome, and Al Gore didn't. Although in that election, it was actually unclear. you can't. In 2000, it was that 2000 was truly
a heads up.
No, everybody gets a pass for that one. It was that was a question mark election.
The best push on that is that other people have done comparable things. There have been faithless electors, that kind of thing.
Trump took a little further.
I think Trump took it quite a bit further. I'm actually more bothered by the lead up to the to January 6th than I am to January 6th itself. Well, I went.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Through and I read the court cases, and what they would do is they'd go into a purple state. They'd say, Judge, we think the votes here in this blue city have been compromised. We don't want to recount. We just want you to throw out the blue city votes.
Right.
Which struck me as trying to use the judiciary on a technicality to overturn a democratic election. So I'm not.
I mean, I can understand that. I will also say the fact of the matter is that, there was a lot of election, would we call it interference? Let's say manipulation. The Zuckerberg basically spent, I think it was $200 million to very specifically target areas in which you had strong Democrat voter bases, and they wanted to spend that $200 million. And when he donated that stuff, he was able to specify exactly how they were going to spend it. And he said, all right, here's what I want you to do. you're going to put more voter booths, you're going to put more, election of these things. We're going to be able to cure ballots much more accurately in these areas specifically. And it's done in such a way that is, as far as I can tell, totally legal. But it is very much, you are doing this not to simply make the process more democratic. You're doing it for a specific outcome. And I think it's fair to say, it was a close election in a lot of these states. I think it's very fair to say, that influenced the result of the election. Now, if you want to say that that's totally democratic, that's part of the process, okay. I would say that's kind of a technicality, as opposed to this really genuinely represented the groundswell of support, the will of the people. I'm not totally in agreement with that.
Inspired with confidence in the faith and rule of law of the current executive.
Well, not to defend those actions, because that sounds great, that's fine. It was done like in a court and then got laughed out of court, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone can, just like when somebody asks you, well, could you get sued for this? Like, everyone can get sued for anything. Because anyone can file a legal action against you. It's just, if it has no basis, it will be thrown out of court.
Okay, yeah. Let me rephrase it. If Trump could steal an election and he knew he was stealing with it, do you think he'd do it? If he knew he could get away with it?
Well, that's a different question.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's entirely different. That's an entirely different question. And it's also fair to say, if Gavin Newsom could steal an election, like if he wanted to say, hey, if we can get a national amendment or whatever, a bill passed that legalizes, just in terms of voter status, every single person who is in the U.S. illegally, and he has very good intelligence that says 99% of those people would vote Democrat. Do you think he would do it? Do you think he would do that? I think he would. I think probably almost every sitting politician or prospective politician, if they were able to basically say, hey, you can press this button and it will win the election. However, it wins it totally illegally. It manipulates, it's going to put out a virus that, just changes vote numbers, whatever. I think all of them would do it. Are you maybe 2 or 3 super principled people like a Rand Paul or like a Thomas Massey, maybe they wouldn't do it? Maybe. All the other ones would definitely do it. I mean, that's a completely different question.
Worried about when it comes to the integrity of the democratic process.
Yeah.
I do think we'll have an election.
It's an interesting individual that the majority of Americans have decided should be our president. Not the majority the first time, and this time the clear majority said, yep, sign me up. Which I think cuts against the idea that he would try to cancel the election, because he likes, now it's not going to be him running. I guess that's the slightly more plausible conspiracy theory, is that he somehow seeks a third term, although it's just pretty directly
in theory,
not allowed in the Constitution.
Actually,
though.
okay, wait, let me think about this, because they built it specifically around Truman, right? So you can have 2 of your own terms and half of another guy's term. Truman could run again. I was really rooting for Jimmy Carter.
Yeah, you know who could run again? Joe Biden.
Joe Biden could run again. Could Trump theoretically run as vice president for Vance and then take the
that is the strategy.
2-second
which would be ground on that. I don't think so.
Acceptable way to do it.
Yeah, there's some wiggle room on that. I think it's still not doable. Also, I think JD Vance wants to be president. It's like, it's his turn. Yeah. You pick J.D. Vance as your designated successor so that there's no actual succession fight. It's not going to be a very competitive primary, I don't think.
I'll say that the thing that I'm gearing up for that I'm going to hate in the next election, I do think we're going to have an election. I just am less enthusiastic about American prospects at the moment than I have been in the past. I think we'll have an election. I'm bothered.
Will the Democrats have an election, or will they just say, actually, we decide it's you now?
Yeah. Right, kind of like they did the last time of the primary and the time before that. And was it also the time before that? Bernie, to correct me if I'm wrong, if you remember something else. Yeah. Weren't they supposed to have some sort of an election there?
One of the things that I'm bothered about is a lot of my Democratic friends are talking about how the election's going to be rigged. Now, I just spent the last 6 years going out going, the election wasn't rigged. It was a legitimate election. Joe Biden won. And now I'm going to have to go around to a lot of the same people that I was previously like, yes, they're correct, and go, no, it was a legitimate election. The Republicans won, whatever that thing is. I don't like it when everybody's undermining. I don't like people undermining elections. That's the thing.
It's a weird mix of stop saying crazy things that are wrong and, well, but you have the right to be skeptical, and just believing everything we're told is also stupid. It's nuance. I hate it. It's been nice to see a little bit of old-fashioned kind of left, liberal, progressive kookery lately, because Republicans have really cornered the market on that in recent times. But now, some of these very regrettable, sad, violent incidents against Charlie Kirk and others.
Yeah, kind of seems like one side maybe went a little bit further with it.
Shooting at an ICE detention center, which actually just killed the detainees. It was not law enforcement people who were harmed. And the bullets say like anti-ICE, and I'm seeing progressive people be like, well, that could mean anything. I have no idea who did that.
I have no idea, no clue. Because I mean, the detainees were killed, and I'm like, the guy probably was just a terrible shot. Horrible that these people got killed. I mean, that is really bad. But he was probably almost certainly trying to kill ICE people, I would imagine, right? Because the bullets say that.
In fact, I don't believe it. I don't even think it was written on that. I'm like, well, this is some, it's better when it's spread out among all sides. People should be believing things that are wrong and laughable and dumb, regardless of political affiliation, would bring the temperature down in our country. Spread out your kooks. Do you know what I mean?
I would like to have a kook and idiot redistribution program. I think that's good. I, an avowed independent, do not want to have two parties where one party is crazy or stupid and one party's smart and or sane. That does not seem like a really stable situation.
Not only it doesn't seem smart, it doesn't seem stable, it doesn't seem like true. Because you're not going to have that. You're going to have, a bell curve on both sides. Because intelligence is not actually super well correlated to liberal, conservative. It's temperamental. It's temperament. That is what is correlated highly with your conservative leaning, your liberal leaning. It's not intelligence.
For me, yeah, we can spread them around. I like it. A couple of years ago, you're going to hate I was at Burning Man, so let me just preface that. I was at Burning Man, and I sat down next to a guy, and I was like, "Hey,
were you dressed just like this?"
I was dressed just like this, except with no shirt. It was game show host having a fair in Bermuda with the vibes that I had, and I went like, "Hey, good morning, guy," and he's like, "Yeah, I just took acid." I was like, "Terrific, okay," and he's like, "Might kick in." I mentioned I was living in Texas at the time, and he went, "Oh man, I have half a mind to go to Texas to make it blue, to make it purple." And I was like, well, why don't you just register as a Republican wherever you are right now? You could have that same impact within the Republican. And like, you could tell that for him, that was like me going, well, why don't you just become Catholic? Because for him, it is a religion.
Yeah, why don't you just become Catholic? Yeah. That's what a Catholic, said after.
Yeah.
So, very interesting stuff. Well, I'll see you in the next election if that happens. Maybe the Libertarian Party will have a candidate.
For real, in 2020, I tried to bring back the Whig Party. If it hadn't been for the confluence of events that made in-person politicking difficult, my plan was to go to Louisiana, which is the easiest place to get on the ballot in the country. You've got to get X amount of ballot signatures in every county. So I was going to go down there and do that. I was going to bring the Whig Party back, and I was running as vice president because I thought it was kind of cocky to run.
You need
for
a
president.
military general at the top of the ticket. You need Zachary Taylor
we weren't going to have that. We weren't going to run a presidential candidate.
Tippecanoe and Heaton too.
It was just in Heaton too. I was just running for vice president. No one was running for president. We were just going to have a blank space, and then I was going to be VP. So maybe I'll do that in 2028. Bring back the Whig Party.
You got my vote.
Very adorable. Yeah. So do I think Gavin Newsom is right? They're going to cancel the 2028 election? Again, no, definitely not. The Republicans are poised to win. Why would Trump cancel the election that his party is poised to win and almost certainly will? He's not going to. Are they going to rig it? Again, one clear majority, and I would imagine if they're poised to win again, why would you rig it? You wouldn't. There's no reason to. Now, would he if he could and for sure got away with it? Yeah, probably. I mean, yeah. You know what? Who else I would say that for? Hillary Clinton, Bernie. Name a politician, and I would say, yeah, they'd probably rig it if they could. Because they're a politician. That's kind of what they do. All right. Let me know what you think down in the comments. How am I wrong? Where am I right? What are some other videos and stuff that you'd like me to watch? Good luck in all your endeavors. Thank you very much for your time and attention. I'll say farewell for now. And stop recording. Delightful. All right. Now I want to get into this thing. Ghosts of Yote. I'll be honest, man. Both of these games. Ghosts of Yote, Hades 2. Ghosts of Yote just came out. So did Hades 2. The question is, why would I want to play a game that is the woker sequel to a game that I have not finished when I still have those games on my computer to play and I have dropped them because there's so many games out there? Question answered, I don't want to. To be perfect, Hades 2, maybe. Again, this is a more unoriginal game because it's a sequel, so it's less original just by definition. Same thing with Ghosts of Yote. It's less original because it's a sequel. And this one specifically is something that I have had tons of signals that say this is probably not going to be as good as the first game, which I haven't finished. And it's made by people who probably would celebrate like my death or, you know, a friend of mine's death if they have the wrong opinions on things. And guess what? Those people probably are not spending all of their mental energy on making this game good. They're probably scrolling X. They're probably, you know, or I should say Blue Sky. And probably just not making this game as good as it could be. Not to mention the fact that, again, I haven't finished the first game, and the first game apparently ends on a cliffhanger, which will not be resolved by this sequel. Why would I want to play this game? How many games do I have? I have, like, literally, let me think. I'm going to say 100 games on my computer. Okay? I have probably 100 games on my computer that I either have not finished, am in the process of playing, haven't started, or would like to replay. All of those more than Ghost of Yote. This is literally, again, I've said this before, I'll say it again. You're giving me reasons not to even consider this game. You gave me enough such that at this point, yeah, no, I'm not going to play this game. I'm not going to buy it. I'm not going to play it. I'll talk about it to say I'm not going to play it. And this is 4 stars. I mean, at least Hades 2, they're saying is 5-star, incredible, the most amazing game of all time. If you like roguelites, okay. Ghosts of Yote, I think this is not worth my time. Definitely not worth my money. Why? Why would I do this? I need no reason whatsoever to not play a game. You give me anything, you give me a crumb, and I go, that's awesome. This is fantastic. I no longer have to take up any mental space thinking about this game. Like, you know, all right, what games am I going to delete off my hard drive? Because, you know, it's filled with games. It's filled with games. Which one? How can I make space for this on my? I don't care. I don't need to care. It's awesome. It's fantastic. This game's dead to me. This game is 100% dead to me. Don't care at all. Now, Hades 2. Am I going to play this game? Not right now. I literally have not even played Hades 1 fully through. I've not completed one full run yet. And I haven't picked the game up in... When did the game come out? 5 years ago? 10 years ago? I don't know. Somewhere in there. I haven't picked it back up. There's... How many roguelites come out? Every month? At least 2? Some of them are good, some of them are bad, some of them are really good. Hades 2 is probably really good, but again, it's been in early access for like, feels like 3 years. So all the hype for this game is gone. I see Hades 2, I was like, oh, it's out? I thought it was another update. No, the game's just out. Wow, that's really cool. The hype train for it is gone. There's tons of other games out there. Do I really? I mean, I guess if you were a roguelike absolute fanatic, you'd be picking this game up. But here's the other side is you'd have the early access thing too. You have already have been playing it. Do I need these things? Do I need these things in my life? Do I need sequels to games and therefore they're unoriginal properties? And you're like, all of these games are going to be woker than the first one. Probably not going to be as good as the first one. And also, like, less interesting, less surprising. It's just treading the same ground again. I don't really care to invest any mental energy. Now, obviously, I'm investing mental energy because I'm making a video about it, but that's because I'm making a video about it. I'm not playing the game. I'm talking about the state of the industry, wherein which these are the only games that are being made. These are the I shouldn't say the only games that are being made, but by the large, AAA studio, this is the stuff we're going to spend money on. We're going to spend years and years doing. That's what we're doing. I'm like, I haven't even played with Clair Obscura yet. Okay? You're going to try to pry my attention away from that game, which is, by all accounts, infinitely superior to both of these games combined, by giving me a sequel to a game that I couldn't be bothered to finish playing in the first place when I don't have this enormous backlog of other games that I want to play. No. I mean, Hades 2, maybe eventually. Ghost of Yotei, nah. It's toast. It's done. Sucker Punch, at the very least, did eventually issue like an apology way after the fact. They did fire the person, but that person's fingerprints are going to be on this game, and I don't think I want to support this game in any way, shape, or form. So the only attention I'm going to give it is the attention of saying, don't buy it. It's not worth your time. Good luck in all your endeavors. Thank you very much for your time and attention. Let me know how I'm wrong in the comments, and farewell for now. Alrighty. That's a quick one. Alright. So this is our next video. Let's see. Kamala Harris? Is it Kamala or Kamala? Kamala. Those are the only three possible possibilities, right? Where's the emphasis? Thinks Trump is a communist dictator. I'm so glad the wine aunt, Kamala Harris, Officer Harris, is talking about being a communist dictator Trump. Okay, let's see it.
Former Vice President Kamala Harris is making the media rounds promoting her new book. In an interview with Rachel Maddow, she...
New book. That's a must-read. It's an absolute must-read because, look, as we all know, Kamala Harris is a leading intellectual light of the generation. She's had an incredible, super interesting life, and her accomplishments really speak for themselves. I mean, she got to be vice president after running the most unpopular presidential campaign in modern history, and then kind of just hung around for 4 years, and then was saying, "Hey, you're the president now," basically as a spite move from Biden to screw over Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and the other DNC people, so that they couldn't run like a primary. And then she did a terrible job campaigning. She had like one good debate performance, but then just, screwed up everything. So, yeah, I really want to read this book. I'm sure she wrote it, for sure, definitely. Definitely she didn't have like a ghostwriter do it. And definitely this is not just a way for her to, launder some money. Not launder some money. What can I say? Grift. That was the word I was looking for.
He actually attacked President Donald Trump for acting like a, quote, communist dictator.
Oh,
Take
cool.
a look.
A tyrant. We used to compare the strength of our democracy to communist dictators. That's what we're dealing with right now, Donald Trump.
Huh?
And these...
We used to... Okay, we used to compare the strength of our democracy with communist dictators.
Titans of industry are not speaking up.
Later in that same interview, however, Harris said she would support Zohran Mamdani, a socialist, for
Yep.
mayor of New York City. Watch this.
As a sort of talent spotter in the Democratic Party,
Yeah.
what do you think of him and his candidacy, and what do you think of mainline Democratic shyness?
Okay, she's a talent spotter? I don't think she's a talent spotter in any way, shape, or form. She's not. She never has been. She's not a mover and a shaker. She's not a kingmaker. She's promoting a book, and they're glazing her because, you know, there's an argument to be made that she's the front runner for 2028 election. I don't think they're going to go for her, but I mean, she is the person who ran last time, so there's an argument to be made that she is, like, she and Gavin Newsom are really the two front runners here, even though they both are not. Their prospects are worse and worse.
And agitation about the prospect that he's going to win.
Look, as far as I'm concerned, he's the Democratic nominee and he should be supported.
Do you endorse,
Vote blue no matter who.
do you
Yeah.
endorse his candidacy?
I support the Democrat in the race, sure. But let me just say this.
Vote blue no matter who. Yeah.
He's not the only star. I know that, he's in New York, and I know New Yorkers think they're the center of the world, and here we are in New York having this interview.
It is the biggest city in the
And
country.
I love
I'm
New
just
York,
saying.
as the saying goes. I really do.
The biggest city in the country? I don't think it is. I'm pretty sure Chicago's bigger, like more populated.
But, I mean, there are people like Barbara Drummond in Mobile, Alabama, Helena Moreno in New Orleans. They're all running for mayor, too, and they are stars. So I hope that we
Well,
don't so
they're not on the same
over-index
stage, though.
on New York City that we lose sight of the stars throughout our country who are right now running for mayor and many other offices, governor, and so on. So
Mobile, Alabama, and New Orleans. The reason she's mentioning these people is because New York is a safe state in terms of national elections. So getting somebody on the New York stage as a Democrat rising star, you're kind of sacrificing some potential votes in like a presidency or national election like that, because you're going to win New York no matter what. It's just it's in the bag already. No one even campaigns in New York. If you're a Democrat or a Republican, you don't go there. The Democrats are going to win. Same thing with California, Maryland, Hawaii. No one goes to these places. They don't campaign there. They campaign in the swing states because you know where you're going to win and you know where you're not going to win.
that's where I am. We got a big tent, and we got a lot of stars.
Who?
That
Yep.
response was so
No.
characteristic of Kamala in that it took forever. She started kind of laughing about an observation that wasn't really very funny.
Yep.
New York's not the center of the world. Okay, right? It's not, correct? It was also mealy-mouthed in that she did not say, I endorse Zohran. She said, well, I support him, sure. She was asked, well, do you endorse him? The hypocrisy I would point to here is she was just calling Trump a communist dictator on one hand, but supporting an active socialist. Socialism is the economic policies of what the communist political system wants. So see, there's a little bit of a problem there, maybe, that she has to work out. But what can I say? It's Kamala.
It is Kamala. She was on The
It
View
is.
this week, too,
Ugh.
giving similar
She's had
word
so many interesting
salads.
things.
It's been fascinating. I had the ability to get a PDF copy of her book, 107 Days, which is her excuse, apparently, for not winning in November.
Oh,
She
you
didn't have
pointed
enough
out
time.
something
my
we
God.
noted at Reason that
Yes.
I wonder if they're going to mention the fact that it's actually, if you had a longer thing, you would have done even worse. Let me see.
tip to you
Thank you.
about Ross Ulbricht.
Yes.
Oh,
she
no.
She said he was
called
a
him
fentanyl dealer.
dealer.
That's not true.
Yeah.
That's just not true.
Yeah, she was complaining about Trump's pardons.
She
and she
associated with
said
January 6th.
January 6th and the fentanyl dealer Ross Ulbricht.
Oh my God, that's
And I
awesome.
immediately sent it to you guys
Yes.
because I knew you would love it.
We appreciate
Fuck
that.
You're very
her.
welcome.
Yeah, she said a lot of interesting and
Man, that feels like libel. Is that libel? I think Ross Ulbricht should sue Kamala Harris.
Kind of stupid things lately. She said she wouldn't have picked, she wanted to pick Pete Buttigieg or something, but wouldn't pick him because he's gay, and gay and black woman is too much for the country to take.
But then on The View, Robbie, she said when they asked her about if there was going to be a female president in our lifetime, she said, well, sure, because, you know, I think that the American people ultimately just want to pick the best person for the job. And it's like, well, you can't believe that. Yeah, you can't believe that and then also believe that they would not vote for Pete Buttigieg because he's gay at the same time. Those are mutually exclusive views.
And we had the problem where she was obviously not picked solely because she was the best person for the job. She was
very clear. I mean, that was literally like laid out. Biden said that publicly. Look, the person who's going to be my vice president is going to be a woman of color. I think he actually said woman of color. I'm pretty sure he said woman, but I'm also pretty sure he said woman of color. So that was the criteria that they were drawing from. They were not drawing from, hey, we're looking at everybody. The best candidate wins. No. We're only looking at this pool of people. All right. And apparently, obviously, if you're picking vice president, you're picking these types of things, you're assessing a lot of things. Like, all right, what does this person bring to the table politically that I don't have? Because you're basically picking someone to sort of fill in a gap or bring more votes from certain demographics. Dude, like having a woman of color as your vice president, if you're the Democratic candidate, you're not bringing in any new voters. Those people are already going to vote for you. The people that are like, we need a woman of color as our president, in our political, I'm like, they're voting for the Democrat. Period. Like they just are. So they did it basically as just like as a virtue signal. They did it as we are the right, we're the good people. That's why we're elevating these marginalized groups. Even though, again, this person's a politician and therefore part of an elite privileged class that 99% of people will never belong to or have any idea how they live their lives.
Because they were doing identity-based criteria, as they said, as they were forced to.
Yes, Biden
was forced to say that I must pick for this reason. I still expect her to be running for president. I would agree. I don't think she's doing a very good job.
She's not.
You know, she's throwing Biden under the bus a little bit. Biden world people are furious with her right now. That should not change her thinking or her actions at all. It would behoove every Democrat at this point to bury the Biden universe people. Biden and his circle are toxically unpopular. The country feels rightly feels taken for a ride by these people.
Yeah, and I mean, this is after they are out of power, they're out of the spotlight. If in the future, you know, again, Kamala goes to run in 2028, dude, all of that stuff about Biden is going to resurface. All of this stuff about, you know, the fact that he probably had cancer for like his entire presidential run, plus his, you know, his campaign leading up to it, probably had it the whole time then too. And part of the, you know, side effects of the treatment or is it the treatment or the disease? I think it's the treatment. Are like, yeah, he has cognitive decline, blah, 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 blah. It was there the whole time. All of that's going to come back. Like right now, it's very much like swept under the rug. Like, who cares? It doesn't really matter. He's out of politics. None of these people are doing anything. And that's kind of sort of relatively true. But I mean, my God, like the unpopularity that they are currently experiencing is nothing compared to what it will be if they are put back in the spotlight.
Who are going to pretend that this man was capable of being president again when he obviously was not. So I would actually like her to see more distancing from her. I don't think she's doing enough. She kind of admitted in the View interview that the previous View interview she did was her golden opportunity to say how she's different from Biden. She said, I wouldn't do anything differently. And now she says that was a mistake. Well, you could still give us the answer. How would you have been different from Biden?
That's true.
Well, tell us
She
that
didn't
point.
give us the answer. And she also is in a bit of a pickle because she obviously defended Biden after the debate performance, saying, well, you know, the first half was a little slow, but then it picked up at the end and he did great at the end. And she also says in the book that she didn't have any concerns about his cognitive abilities, more so his physical abilities.
In her book? No way. Dude, that's going to bite her in the ass so hard.
She talks about how, you know, he broke his foot and then he refused to wear the boot, and so she thinks that's what led to his infamous stiffened gait. But then she also says in the book that ultimately it was her responsibility and the buck stopped with her in trying to convince Biden not to run again. So again, it's this speaking out of both sides of her mouth, where she's saying things that are just inconsistent with one another, almost within the same sentence.
She seems on some level genuinely loyal to him, or like unwilling to be too harsh with him.
Which is weird because she hasn't been loyal to bosses in the past. I mean, when she
That's
was
true. I mean, I will say, I think, I will be honest, I do think she somehow has some, like, horrible dirt on Biden or Obama or something like that, or one of their people, something like that. And that's the reason she got picked as vice president. Because, like, it boggles my mind. There's no other explanation that makes sense as to why she was chosen. There were other women of color that literally polled better, that did better, that would have brought more, that would have been from better backgrounds, that would have been from states where, you know, Biden could have used a boost. There, I mean, literally any number of candidates who would have been better, tactically, politically speaking, than her. The fact that she was picked and so massively unpopular really does. I'm like, the only explanation I can think of is that she is an incredible political manipulator, which doesn't really seem super likely given her, you know, current trajectory. Or she's got like some real serious dirt on Biden, on Obama, on, you know, some of their staff members, something like that. Somebody in charge, somebody who could whisper into his ear and go like, "Hey, look, you know, Biden's chief of staff, for instance. We need to pick Kamala. We gotta get her in there." It just doesn't make sense to me otherwise. I've never understood why she got picked. There's never been a good argument for why she didn't do a good job. It doesn't make any sense to me. So that kind of line of thinking of that, you know, she has something over that camp, those people, would make sense why she is kind of like not totally throwing them under the bus. She's showing some loyalty to them, because if she doesn't totally burn that bridge, she can continue to hold that over them and leverage it against them and have them, you know, support her in the future. As opposed to if she totally like burns the bridge, you know, it's over. That leverage that she has, that political shit that's gotten her so much, is you know, worthless now.
For, I think it was San Francisco DA, she had promised that she was not going to run against her boss, who was facing allegations of like office mismanagement. And then as soon as the opportunity presented itself, she ran anyway.
Yeah. And
so what is it about Joe Biden?
Clearly, and she doesn't like his people. She thinks that she didn't get enough support from like the team, the Biden team, which is kind of stupid.
Whatever,
it's like
you're vice president.
You're an
grow
adult.
up.
Do your own comms.
Right.
Like you can't. You need their
have your
help
own team
to walk you through every kind of PR disaster. It doesn't make sense. But I don't think she's found a good way to come back from this. Maybe there is no good way, and I think everyone associated with the Biden administration is, at best, has a significant mark against them as they run for president. That includes Buttigieg, frankly, who was supposed to be in cabinet meetings with a zombie, who is the corpse who didn't show up. That's gonna come up, but I don't know. Maybe the purpose of writing this book is she wants to start burning bridges and, I don't know, make some money, and she's not gonna run. That's what I know.
That's a definite possibility. You know, where she's just like, all right, like, I'm not going to win. I'm not going to do this stuff. I'll run for president again, just again, raise my profile. And then maybe I can get a position in the administration if there is one. If not, you know, I get a little bit more publicity. My next book comes out and, gets talked around, makes more money. That's not a bad explanation. She's just doing this for some cash.
Some people in political world think that you don't write this kind of book if you actually do intend to run for president, but it's Kamala, so maybe she doesn't know that. But go back to her initial point when she's slamming communist dictator Trump and saying that the titans of industry, the business leaders, the tech leaders, and they're just all putting up with his communist policies. And by the way, I'm perfectly happy to knock his policies as communist. So where every president's policies are far too communist for me.
Yep.
The reason that they're putting up with some economic policies that I actually don't think are good in terms of tariffs and everything else, the Democratic Party is not capable of capitalizing on any mistakes that I think Republicans are making on this front, because the Democratic Party is now a party that is of Elizabeth Warren type people who are so hostile to business, and they want to write letters to every tech CEO, every media company saying, why are you making any of these decisions? Why did you do this? However misguided I think some of the MAGA populism economic stuff is, the Democrats aren't offering anything better that are going to compete.
In fact, they were actively investigating and pushing for censorship from these big tech companies and trying to tell them how to run their business.
I think Elizabeth Warren said something today about how she wants to investigate Sinclair and Nexstar over not putting Kimmel on.
I'm glad you brought this up.
Interesting.
I'm glad you brought this up because...
And again, I don't like what the FCC said at all, but Democrats are going to do the other thing.
They immediately put their foot in their mouth because that awful California lawmaker, Scott Weiner, also in the aftermath of the FCC's pressure campaign, said that he wanted to break up Sinclair and Nexstar. So you're advocating for free speech against the FCC, but not for free speech of the private companies who said that they didn't want to air Kimmel's show. Like, it's just completely...
No, it's going to create an environment that I think is certainly not ideal, where, again, Republicans, business leaders are all lining up behind Trump and Republicans because they tried to play ball with Democrats in the 2015 to 2022 period. The period of time where Trump is the face of the Republican Party, the kind of language he uses, the politics he represents, they really don't like. They tried to be more active in Democratic politics. Zuckerberg did. Elon was driven from the left to the right. All these other figures know that this is the best they can possibly do. It's going to make competition for them it was becoming not competitive at all because they feel they have no choice. That's why the abundance agenda, which I wholeheartedly support, is that what the Democratic base wants? No, what the Democratic base wants is the kind of Zoran, AOC, Bernie, Warren type stuff, I think. I hope I'm wrong. Maybe we'll find out I'm wrong, but I think that's exactly what they want. Not those moderate mayors you've never heard of that Kamala is so excited about.
Also, I would be curious to find out if they're actually moderate.
Yeah. Not moderate enough for you, I'm sure.
I'm sure. Surely
Probably not.
More free media right after this.
All right, so with that, because they just were talking about the Jimmy Kimmel FCC stuff, I want to get into that one right away.
Well, it's been a crazy 6 days for Jimmy Kimmel, who was initially kicked off his late-night show following inaccurate remarks he made about the presumed motivations of Charlie Kirk's killer. Kimmel had said that the MAGA gang was desperate to pretend alleged shooter Tyler Robinson was not one of them, which brought him widespread criticism. Kimmel. Finally, two media companies, Nexstar and Sinclair, decided not to air Kimmel on their local affiliates, which then prompted ABC to cancel Kimmel altogether. But after disappearing from the airwaves for a few nights, Kimmel was brought back by ABC, although Nexstar and Sinclair
Incredible censorship.
continued not to air him. FCC Chair Brendan Carr had encouraged the media companies to punish Kimmel, which does make this a free speech issue in the eyes of some. Here was Kimmel addressing the FCC aspect of his cancellation on a show last night.
I want
to thank the people who don't support my show and what I believe, but support my right to share those beliefs anyway. People who I never would have imagined, like Ben Shapiro, Clay Travis, Candace Owens, Mitch McConnell, Rand Paul, even my old pal Ted Cruz, who, believe it or not, said something very beautiful on my behalf.
Okay, lots to get into here. We should begin by disclosing that Rising, the show that I participate in and you participate in as well, is owned by Nexstar. Always got to get that straight away. Now, I agree with Nexstar or Sinclair or ABC or any other private media company's right to decide to air or not air Kimmel or anyone else. That's all fine. They've made the decision to bring him back. He was not particularly contrite. It did not seem to me like conservatives were at all having what he was saying in terms of he kind of said, I regret if my words had offended you. It certainly
Sorry,
did
not sorry. Yeah.
It wasn't an apology.
It wasn't an apology, and he did not admit that I implied this guy was a right wing and he's clearly not right wing. That is not something we heard from Kimmel.
No, it was not. And of course, he went through this whole non-apology apology with fighting back tears, and it was kind of hilarious because this is the same guy that cheered on cancellations of people that he disagreed with.
Roseanne.
Tucker Carlson.
Yep.
Yeah, he loved it when right-wingers got fired.
Oh, yeah. And they got actually fired. You know, they got actually totally blown up. This guy got a 6-day Twitch ban, basically.
Gone from ABC, snap of fingers. We did a great interview with her on Rising, actually, a few months ago, where she put in context that what, at the time, I thought was, grossly offensive comment she made about Valerie Jarrett, where she explained it was not, it was just much more complicated than people made it out to be. We don't need to get any further into that. I do think I am certainly concerned about the FCC. I don't think the FCC needed to say anything about this. You could just let the market decide. I'm not the only one who feels that way. Ted Cruz has said that as well. That and to get more specific about it. So Brendan Carr. And he even used they can do this the hard way or the easy way. It very much sounded like pressuring. I understand the FCC has a public interest standard, and ABC is a broadcast channel, not like a cable channel. It's true. The FCC does have some oversight over those kinds of things. That tends to be like nudity type and swearing and protect the children type stuff. This was really getting into more editorial content, and I worry about the limiting principle there. So I think he just didn't need to say anything at all, and the market was perfectly capable of dealing with what Kimmel said.
Yeah, I do think ultimately that Nexstar and Sinclair would have made those decisions anyway.
Yeah.
I would completely agree with that.
And if Brendan Carr had not done that interview where he talked about potentially pressuring ABC to take Jimmy Kimmel off the air or force an apology or something of that nature, which I think did sort of raise eyebrows for some people who are concerned about the free speech aspect of this. I'm personally not as concerned about it because you mentioned that this is a broadcast network. Their license is provided to them under the purview of government regulation. So the government's already involved in speech in this
This is all very true, very fair.
way. They decide who gets the broadcast licenses. They have lawful oversight over the networks that then get the licenses, which there's a limited number of them. So it's not like everybody gets a broadcast license. Like the government already is engaging in some kind of viewpoint discrimination in that way. And in this case, the argument would be that Jimmy Kimmel was engaging in news distortion, which is
true. I mean, that's definitely, I think, a very reasonable, if not I don't know if I would say that's 100% definitely for sure true, but certainly well within the bounds of, I could totally see that.
One of the regulatory facets that the FCC has oversight over, which is basically spreading fake news, which is what he did. So I think it's a little bit more complicated than some of the people who were quick to cry government censorship were really understand.
I think it's somewhat complicated.
Especially because of the fact that, again, if you were to look at this, hey, potentially we might look about these types of things, hey, we might maybe do this, as opposed to you have straight up government agencies telling Facebook, Twitter, these types of things no, do censor this. Do make sure that this doesn't get around, make sure this article is suppressed, make sure blah, 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 blah. The difference in government censor, I don't like it on either side, but one side did it very clearly, another side's like, okay, I mean, yeah, I suppose so. There's a little bit of wiggle room, not good, but comparing to, another example, you'd say, oh, yeah, that one's way worse and much more clear cut, obvious. Definitely they did it.
But, even when something I criticized endlessly and still criticized to this day is efforts by Biden officials to pressure social media companies. That was also a little bit complicated because the Supreme Court did not ultimately find, even though in my view they should have found, they did not find that directly pressuring or indirectly pressuring the social media companies to take down content violated the First Amendment.
It was that
it was a standing issue.
Right.
But
they said that the plaintiffs didn't have standing, so
Right.
they didn't really rule on the merits of whether or not they were violating the First
But when you
Amendment.
think of things like, Joe Biden saying, well, Facebook is killing people unless they take down more COVID content I want, his communications director saying we might go after Section 230
Frugal,
if they don't
how's
do
it
more of what we
going?
want. The White House comms team saying, I can't believe you let RFK Jr. and Alex Berenson and everyone else out. Maybe Facebook would have done those things anyway. Maybe it starts to get a little murky. And at this moment where and I know that, the typical Republican or conservative or MAGA response to me and others putting up some, flashing red lights like, we should really want to go down this road. They'll say, well, the left is going to do this to us anyway, so why shouldn't we do it? I think that makes more or less sense in some cases, but this is a clear-cut case where we could actually, or Republicans have could use this moment of control to constrain the FCC's behavior in the future in ways that would be good. Like, I'm all for blunting the weapon of the enemy, and this tactic is not being embraced enough for me right now by Republicans. It's
I can
very
understand
much
that. Very reasonable.
Pretend we're going to be in power forever sort of attitude.
Which is definitely a dumb move. I think, it's semi-understandable. I think certainly all the polling for the next, midterm and then potentially 2028 is leaning heavily towards Republicans being in power for so he's figured that at least the next 7 to 8 years, and therefore they're thinking to themselves, well, we can kind of take our time blunting we can use them while we have them, and then before it gets out of our hands, we can blunt them, we can destroy them, we can dearm, we can disarm. That's probably not a bad strategy either, but yeah, I mean, in terms of just full freedom and all that kind of stuff, I'm all for it. But I mean, it's understandable people are acting the way that they are currently.
I think, where I would like to see more fundamental reforms to agencies that have done the right or whoever wrong in the past.
One of the benefits of this whole snafu, I guess you could call it, is that a lot of people have been calling for a fundamental restructuring of the way broadcast licenses are handed out and regulated, or getting rid of the system entirely, which is something that I'm pretty supportive of.
Oh, yeah.
But I think in the current situation that we're in, it should be the right's, I think, duty to exercise regulatory oversight the same way that the left would. And the only reason that the left doesn't have precedent of going after conservatives as much with the FCC is because all of the broadcast news networks are overtly liberal. So there isn't really a reason for them to accuse George Stephanopoulos of news distortion.
Sure. Do you think the right is overly obsessed with, and by the right I mean Trump himself, overly obsessed with what's on TV, a medium fewer and fewer people are watching? It's on one level almost
Yeah, I mean, he's old.
Weird to be so. I know it is more regulated because of the nature of broadcast, that there's a finite number of channels, but it's who cares? Everybody's increasingly gets their news and entertainment and information from the social media and from YouTube. More people are going to watch clips of Kimmel on social media and on YouTube, and actually those clips are doing better this time because he's in the news because of what happened.
Right.
I think you can even make an argument that there's a little bit of a Streisand effect going on here with having.
Oh, definitely. I think the Streisand effect, though, is going to wear out. I think this is basically going to be the second he's out of the news, it's over. He's toast. And again, I mean, unless I'm mistaken, the reason why was it Nexstar, these types of things, they were basically going to cancel him anyway because they had like a huge amount of like local stations, which is, how this broadcast stuff works, going, we can't sell ads for this guy. Like, he literally is just dead air. We can't sell any ads. No one wants to pay for him. We'd straight up like would rather you do like just infomercials or bullshit, because that would be better for us. This is just dead air. We have no commercials that we could possibly sell for this time slot. They're worthless. So the idea that, again, like, yeah, like the Streisand effect, like, oh, he's gonna get even more popular. And I was like, there's gonna be a bump because everyone's gonna do this stuff, but they weren't watching him anyway, you know?
Cast Kimmel as a resistance hero, and now someone the non-Trump faction of the country has to pay attention to, maybe only briefly.
No, yeah, no.
It's like, why do we care so much about what's actually on the television? It's accounting for a small, increasingly microscopic method of keeping your attention.
Trump definitely cares more about broadcast news than most Americans.
He's an old guy.
Yeah,
He's
I
old.
think
Yeah.
Shows his age in that
the
regard.
numbers recently show that only like 200,000 people in the key age demo of the 25 to 54 were watching Kimmel. So actually,
Nothing.
I know. So I think
Hilarious,
that ABC and to a greater extent Sinclair and Nexstar were probably looking for a reason to phase Kimmel out anyway. And
If you had to predict the Republican and Democrat candidates right now, who would you say? All of the candidates, I mean, so for Democrat, I would say the two front runners are probably Kamala Harris, hilarious, and Gavin Newsom. I think both of these candidates are front runners just purely because we know who they are. They're both really bad. They both have a ton of baggage, and I don't know if they are strong candidates, which is why I'm kind of like very wishy-washy about whether or not they will actually be. I think they'll run. I think they'll both probably run. I don't know if either of them have a legitimate chance of being the candidate. And if they are the candidate, I don't think they have a strong chance of winning. Republican candidate, probably J.D. Vance. That seems to be the obvious. That seems to be the most obvious, like, person who would run. I know Trump has not specifically endorsed him as, like, 2028 presidential candidate. My guess is that's just because, he's still president. He doesn't want to say anything about it now. When it comes further on, when it is, like, 2027, 2028, I'm guessing he would get behind him and say, yeah, Vance is going to be the thing. I think, if I'm going to be totally honest, it's also why he was picked, because in terms of like vice presidents, you usually try to pick somebody who is going to like shore up your weak spots. So like in that sense, the like a really interesting pick for him would have been like Tulsi Gabbard as vice president. That would have brought over a lot more people and would have been like a very interesting political move. But he didn't do that. He picks J.D. Vance, who is not really bringing over an enormous amount of new people, but he is a very good like successor figure. He's very much someone who can pick up the mantle after Trump leaves. So I think that's why he was picked as vice president, and therefore that's why I would say Republican, almost certainly J.D. Vance. Could be somebody else, but almost certainly J.D. Vance. Democrat candidate, probably Gavin Newsom or Kamala Harris, but I'm kind of like expect that to change in the future. If the DNC can find anybody that they think has a chance of winning, they'll back them. And I think it is going to be, like a straight up primary fight. There is going to be, I don't know if there's going to be a huge field of candidates in the primary for, 2028, but my guess would be yes. My guess is there's going to be, a relatively wide open thing similar to like the 2020 election. But, who actually ends up winning that? Who can say? I have no idea. I'm curious to see if Bernie would even run 2028. I'm very curious to see if he would run. I kind of think he wouldn't. I think he's too old, and I think he's kind of like cucked out to the DNC too many times to be taken seriously as like an outsider candidate, because they screwed him over twice. They stole the election, they stole the primary election from him twice, very clearly, and he just still does what they say. So the idea that he's going to actually be, a super duper outsider, revolutionary, rebel voice and not just do whatever the DNC says to do seems to me very unlikely. I could be wrong, though.
In the way that they are doing to Stephen Colbert, because the ratings for late night just aren't there anymore.
We can beat that in a single day on Rising without even trying.
Yeah, which says a lot. But I think, with the audience that does consume a lot of late night comedy, it's this sort of boomer class that has become increasingly radicalized, actually, from resistance type politics, and has gone like full blown crazy. I mean, these are the people you see at all of these anti-ICE protests and the protests outside of the White House. It's mostly white liberal boomers, actually, with like a smattering of Gen Z folks mixed in.
The hippie class has gotten older.
Exactly. So I think in that sense, the public interest argument seems a little bit more credible.
I see.
Like, we actually do have a swath of like insane boomers that are just binging Jimmy Kimmel, and 25%.
Well, you know that no one resents the influence of old people over our political system more than I do.
I know you do. And we have, 25% of liberals who do believe that the Kirk shooter was right-wing. Yeah. So I think that the public interest argument actually was...
I think it was more than that. I think it was like 33% or something.
Yeah, it was like a third.
You said. It was more than thought he was a left-wing shooter.
Yes.
That's for sure.
Yes.
Yep.
We've got more to talk about on Free Media. Please stay.
Which is crazy. Yeah, that's completely insane. But yeah, that's definitely very true. So, if you wanted to take that to court and be like, hey, this is a public interest thing, I think you'd have a very, seriously, significantly decent chance at making that argument. I believe it.
We have this from CG Hero. It says, would you rather eat pineapple pizza or anchovy pizza?
Okay, chat. Pineapple pizza or anchovy pizza? I've never had anchovies on pizza. I've had anchovies before. Had sardines before. I feel like they're very similar. I don't love them, but I don't hate them. Currently, though, I can't eat them. The especially like in the morning, people say to eat sardines in the morning. Can't do it, man. The smell is just like disgusting. Makes me want to puke. Pineapple pizza, though, I've never had a pizza with just pineapple on it. I've had a Hawaiian pizza, though, which is pineapple and ham, maybe some bacon, too. And usually, I feel like every time I've had it, it's like a sweeter sauce. It's like a sweeter tomato sauce, pizza sauce. That's good. That stuff's good. I don't care what anybody says about it. I understand some people are like, no, there's no such thing as pineapple on pizza. It's not pizza anymore. I get it. But just, call it something else. Call it not pizza. It's good. It does taste good. So would I rather have pineapple pizza or anchovy? Definitely pineapple.
Pineapple pizza.
Yeah.
Pineapple for me, yeah. I've actually never even had pineapple pizza ever in my life.
I've never had anchovies, but...
What?
One of my first jobs was working in
Really?
a pizza place, man, and they never used them, but they had the anchovies on hand. That smell.
Yeah, the smell is like, especially if it's like out for a little while or something like that, dude. Yeah, because they're cured fish. All of the fat is rendered out into. They're usually packed in like oil, like olive oil or something like that. So the fat from the fish has seeped out into the oil, and obviously you are aware fish fat is so volatile. And this is part of why it's like a good thing. It's got the omega-3s and all that kind of stuff, but it is just like very volatile. It breaks down super, super fast, which means that it turns rancid, or at least like, the smell of it turns really bad really fast, and it's really bad.
You a pizza maker? What'd you do?
I made pizzas.
Hell yeah, you did.
16.
16.
Let's go, dude. Love that. That's great.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I bet you.
I'll never forget that smell. I'll never forget the smell of those anchovies. Yeah,
they're bad.
It was awful.
Especially, I can't even imagine what it would be like if you've got stuff like at a pizza's place, like, so imagine like a Subway where they have everything, like all the stuff out. That's usually how you have stuff at like a pizza restaurant. Any places that's making pizza, they'll have like just tubs of all the toppings. So if you have anchovies, it's just going to be sitting in, like a metal stainless steel bin next to all this other crap. It's going to get hot. It's going to get like rancid. It's going to be horrific. Yeah, I can't even imagine that. And that's why I would imagine if you were to have anchovies on hand, like if that was something you're going to do, you'd have like a can or two and it would be sealed. And you'd be like, all right, if somebody wants anchovies, you open a can, you put it on there because they're cheap. But that's it. Like, and then like throw the rest of the crap out, or just be like, yeah, we're not doing anchovies. I've never seen anybody actually get anchovies on pizza. Apparently my grandfather did. Apparently he did.
Loud and proud says pizza? Heck yeah, but I'm interested in hearing the Italian opinion. Looking at you, Labs.
Yeah.
Like pineapple on pizza? I am not for it. No.
Okay.
Yeah,
How
but
about
you
anchovies?
put, like weird shit in tacos.
Yeah.
I'd rather do the anchovies, but I don't particularly like anchovies, so
Anchovies. I don't understand why anchovies are okay, but pineapple's not. Like, tomatoes are fruit. Pineapples are fruit. They're both acidic. They both have a tang to them, but they're also relatively sweet. I'll be totally honest, pineapple makes way more sense to me than anchovy. Like, anchovy, I get it. You have like a fish sauce, which is sort of like where a lot of like ketchup comes from. You have the ancient garum stuff. That ancient Roman sauce, it's like a fish sauce, which is kind of like a ketchup. I get it. I can see it. I can understand it. But the full on like fish flavor, I'm not for it. I'm not for it. And again, I don't understand the hate for pineapple. I want to actually have like a real sit down 3-hour debate with some real super Italian person and be like, okay, come on. We need to go through this whole thing step by step. Pineapple on pizza. No, absolutely no. What are you talking about? Okay. Stow that Italiano stuff for just a second. Let's take it step by step. Why? We need to work through this. We need to find the root of this trauma. Where did the pineapple touch you?
what I would do is I would like crush up the anchovies and everything when you're making a sauce with like tomato sauce and everything, and it becomes super duper fine, like tiny little pieces, and you just put it in like with the sauce, and it becomes kind of like a little bit of an enhanced flavor without.
Yeah, you get the extra umami. That's, like I said, that's kind of why I can sort of understand it, but the full on like there's just a big giant huge fish on there, I don't know.
Such an anchovy flavor in your face, really, because they're very, very strong, I find. So,
I would agree with that.
What
I
is
would
that
agree with
stuff
that.
you like in your tacos again? I forget.
I just like cucumbers. I don't know what the problem
Cucumbers
is.
in a fucking taco.
Thank you, Flash.
Okay, so cucumbers, I will say this, I've said it before, say it again. I don't think cucumbers are that crazy. However, they're forgetting, she said she likes cucumbers and carrots. Cucumbers, I can kind of understand it. Not terrible. It's like, all right, like, what do you have? You know, you have some pickles. Like, all right, like, what about like bell peppers? Like bell peppers in your taco? That's totally reasonable. Is a cucumber that far away from a bell pepper? Are they really? Is it that totally different? I think it's relatively reasonable. I think that's relatively okay. That's reasonable. Carrots though is like so left wing out of nowhere. Insane. Left field. That one's crazy to me. Carrots makes no sense to me whatsoever.
Thank you.
And the Mexicans never have a problem with it, just the white boys.
All the Mexicans do. All the
I
Mexicans
literally went and asked them.
except for the singular one that felt sorry for you.
Right now, there's a Mexican raging in this chat because
I
of the
doubt it.
There
cucumbers
is.
and tacos.
You can like put almost like a lot of different vegetables in tacos. It'd be fine.
Mm-hmm.
You really can't have a stance on this, I don't think.
I
Well,
can't.
I do because it doesn't belong in a taco.
Because you
Okay.
found the one Mexican who doesn't, who says it's okay. Like, congratulations, you found the one dude.
What do you mean? I asked like the one that I knew the best. I was like, hey man, honest opinion. I know you won't lie to me. What are you talking about?
I don't
He's
know.
lying to you.
All right, new poll: cucumbers and tacos.
Yes, let me ask all the whiteys what their tacos opinion is.
Yeah, all the
Cucumbers
whiteys,
and
you say.
tacos.
Wait.
I mean, I've never had cucumbers and tacos. I can taste it. I can understand what it would be. Yeah. Is it great? Is that totally what I would actually have? No, probably not. But I mean, there's definitely worse things I could think of. Like, what about like mayonnaise? Would you have mayonnaise on tacos? That's something where I'm just like, okay. Just thinking about that, that would be like gag immediately, right? Yeah, that'd be crazy. Cucumbers? I mean, it's just water with a little bit of a snap to it. There's a mild flavor to cucumber, that's true, but not really a lot. And especially with like, all the spices in a taco, seasoning, you're not really going to taste it. You're just kind of feeling the crunch, similar to you do with like, lettuce. You have lettuce in your tacos all the time. Are you really going to notice the difference between cucumber and lettuce? I don't think so. Carrots, though, yeah, carrots are insane. I don't know how they're forgetting carrots.
We have a wide.
You asked one Mexican.
Yes, you asked a singular Mexican who's your best friend.
That's lying to you. Of course, that's okay, Blabs.
Yeah, it's all right.
Whatever you say, Blabs. Whatever you say.
They're trying not to hurt your white fragility.
All right, Whiteys, go vote.
Okay.
Go vote in the chat. Cucumbers and tacos. Let us know. All right, we'll give you guys a few minutes.
Not that bad.
Food discussion here. And Sophistiqueef says every taco needs a stiff cucumber. Don't make it weird, Sophistiqueef.
Don't make it weird.
Username was that?
The best one.
That's a pretty good one.
Hey, give it up this. Lion says, as a Mexican, street tacos have sliced cucumbers as garnishes. They always run out. Look.
No, you just gotta throw it out the window because it doesn't meet your agenda. It's fine.
No. What I am going to say is that's fine, but it's not included on the taco. It's
Yes, it
garnish.
is. It's garnished.
No,
That's literally it. It's on top of the taco.
It's a garnish. It's an additional thing that is not included on the taco. If you want to put hot sauce on a taco, you put hot sauce on a taco. It's
You're
a
literally
garnish.
No, okay, you're losing it now, buddy. No, you're losing
makes
it.
no sense. It's
It makes all the
garnished.
sense in
I'm
the world.
literally garnishing my tacos with cucumbers at the very top. It's the exact same shit. You just don't like it because for some reason you have no culture when it comes to food.
Okay, now you're pushing it a little bit too far. But you had him on the ropes. You had him on the ropes. He was backing away. He said, "No, okay, it's fine. It's fine if you put it on there. You want to put cucumbers on your taco. Okay, so it's okay if somebody wants to put cucumbers on your taco. Now you're losing it. Now you're losing it because the Mexicans have spoken and they've said, yeah, no, cucumbers garnish on tacos. Yeah, for sure.
It's alright, man.
Don't even get me fucking started on the taco on the culture.
No culture.
Yeah.
This is coming from the person who says that Olive Garden is bad.
Yes.
Olive Garden is pure culture. Take that back.
Unbelievable.
I IQ drop sometimes when I'm here.
You know what I had? Yesterday, I had Olive Garden, and you know what? It was fucking delicious.
You felt like you were in Italy, didn't you?
Listen, with all the Italian music,
You don't
bada
even
bing,
need to
bada
go to
boom.
Italy when you could just go to a fucking Olive Garden instead.
Now,
Yeah,
Flash
that's fair.
trolling.
Plus, you want to know why? Because when I'm at Olive Garden, I feel like I'm with family. That's why.
That's right.
Because when I'm here at Olive Garden,
Fast and the Furious?
absolutely, 100%. You walk in the door and they say, "Hey, Badaboom, man, come on in. We're gonna have some Italian food for you tonight." And then they sit you down. And then
What are you,
say,
like the wacky inflatable balloon? Like, what are you doing?
They say, "Hey, do you want some red wine?"
Do you just stand outside the car dealership trying to sell cars with your arms?
No. I'm telling you, that's what happens when you walk into Olive Garden. And then they got the music is going bum ba dum ba dum ba dum.
National restaurant.
I think that actually sounds like accurate background music for Olive Garden. I'll say.
That's right. It's amazing.
Yeah.
You know what I had yesterday, Blabs?
You're gonna tell me though.
Zuppa Toscana. That's Toscana
Tuscan
soup.
I
That's
know.
right.
I
and it was delicious.
can still translate your terrible Italian. Don't worry, man.
Oh,
The best soup of my life. Just saying, it's delicious.
If you go to Italy and just ask what's your favorite restaurant, everybody is saying Olive Garden.
I think that might be true.
They see it as a way to export their culture and expand, Blabs. You're not over here to embrace
They
it.
do.
That's
It's like an ambassadorship from Italy. That's true.
the worst thing about it. That's what makes me so sad.
You drop my IQ sometimes, you know? Like a little bit lower every single day.
Hey, look at this. Here you go. Rod says, Blabs, cucumber does not go in the taco. You going to tell Rod he's not a good good Mexican? Is that what you're going to tell him?
He's even using pesos to send the chat, so he's
right.
authentic.
Whoa.
But as a side dish with the taco, as with the radish, and see, that's what I'm saying. And
Does not go inside the taco, but as a side dish with the taco. Okay, I don't understand the. So it's like as a side dish with the taco, as in it's another dish. Like, so all right, so you have your barbecue, and then you have your coleslaw. Coleslaw is a side dish, but a lot of people will put it on top of their stuff. They'll eat it with it. Especially if they're making a sandwich, they put the coleslaw on, like, you know, your brisket or your pulled pork or whatever. For sure. That's a thing. And I guess you'd say, all right, it's a side dish. But a garnish is a different thing. A garnish is a different thing. A garnish goes on the stuff. You know, like, oh, yeah, we're garnishing your fish with some, you know, parsley. Some chopped parsley. You're eating that parsley. You're eating that stuff that comes on it. It goes on top of it. With the taco, okay, we really actually have to, like, you know, dive into this stupid hardcore. With the radish, yeah, like radish, that's another thing where I'm like, radish on taco, that's in the same category as like carrot to me, which is like, that's a strong flavor, radish especially. Plus, like, the textural thing is like, I don't think I'd like it. I always prefer a soft shell taco. I hate a hard shell taco. I really hate them because they never stay together. They're terrible. I don't like them at all. But, I mean, yeah, I like a nice soft taco. I think cucumber's reasonable. Radish is like a little bit too hard. It's too much of a bite. It's too hard of a vegetable.
I'm Mexican,
It's garnished and everything. He's literally saying almost the exact same thing the other guy was saying. You can have it on the side, you can have it together, whatever. The fact is, I don't know why we're having like this big ass argument about cucumbers and tacos.
It doesn't go in the taco. Doesn't go in the taco. All right. Well, what do you mean in the taco? Do you mean like okay, if you put it on top of your taco, is not in it? Like, I mean, you're cooking. Obviously, you're not cooking it with cucumber. If that's what she's talking about, like, all right, when I'm cooking up my ground beef or chicken or whatever, I'm putting cucumber in there and I'm putting tomato, blah 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 blah. I'm putting all of these things together. If that's what she's saying, she's a straight up lunatic. But that's not what she's saying. Pretty sure. I mean, this is an ongoing, you know, category of lore for side scrollers. I'm not 100% caught up on it, but I'm pretty sure it's, you know, it's an extra thing you put on top. You got your tortilla, you put your meat on it, and then you put your cheese, you put your sour cream, you put your chopped onions, you put some lettuce, you put some tomatoes, And you can put some salsa on it. And you can put some, what else? Yeah, and you want to put some cucumber on it. I think that's reasonable. I think that's reasonable.
We like pineapple on pizza. Shut up.
Terrible.
Because right, 100%. Because
Have you ever had it?
Look at this. Enrique says, I'm Mexican. My wife is Mexican. We both say no cucumbers on tacos. If anything, that one Mexican was just trying to be nice to you. No cucumbers.
Someone on the internet just told me no cucumbers. Oh no.
Believe all Mexicans, Blabs.
Okay.
All right? Come on.
Hashtag me too.
Can't believe all Mexicans because one of them said
Hashtag believe
it's
all
okay.
Mexicans over
So,
there.
all right. So as of right now, we've got 2 and 2. We're tied
There you
up.
go. Jason says, Blabs, I live in California. Listen, you're gonna doubt a Californian. Says we have numerous taquerias. None of them have cucumbers on tacos. None.
Right. Okay.
Hey, gringo, stop it, Jason. Mercenary says, half Guatemalan here. Mom likes cucumbers on tacos, but I don't. Full stop. See, Mercenary, you're
You get
Guatemalan.
one yes, one no.
That's the,
And now we're gonna be instant phobes to the Guatemalans.
no, I'm just saying his opinion, his mom's opinion, who is half Guatemalan, doesn't matter. I would imagine.
Isn't the white man saying the Latino doesn't have an opinion?
No,
Hang
I
on.
believe all Mexicans. I would imagine
We gotta go back
his
for a
opinion,
second.
His mom's opinion. Stop. See.
Okay, half Guatemalan. Mom likes cucumbers. Okay, so mom is the Guatemalan. And then he's half Guatemalan. So his opinion only counts for half.
Mercenary, you're Guatemalan. No matter.
You're half
I would
Guatemalan.
imagine
Isn't
that.
the white man saying the Latino doesn't have an opinion?
No, I believe all
Damn,
Mexicans.
bro.
Hashtag believe all Mexicans. All right?
We're
That's
just
all
not
I'm
the
saying.
Guatemalans because they're beneath you.
Yeah.
1000%.
Sam, click.
All right.
Zoe says the news of Malcolm's passing come just short of.
There's a reason we keep them as just a territory.
Oh boy.
You know.
AJ says
Jeez.
telling a Texan that he has no culinary culture is wild. I know. Like this is like the epicenter of food in the world, and Black
Okay, that's you're going a little far there, buddy.
over here telling me about cucumbers and
Don't get me wrong. I like some Texas barbecue. Make no mistake. You know, Texas Roadhouse is really good. But you're gonna try to tell me that, you know, the origin, the epicenter of food. No. Get out of here.
Joey says.
Dude, you don't like most foods. Why am I listening to your opinion?
Plus, I love food. I just don't like mayonnaise. That's it.
No, there's more than just mayonnaise. Capers,
Hold on a second.
pickles,
Mayo is
cheese.
good on some things.
Capers, pickles, cheese. I think I like all of those. Those are all
He doesn't
good.
even like cheese.
No, I like cheese. I had a Philly cheesesteak
Cheese.
yesterday
So
with
you didn't
cheese.
like cheese once.
Yeah, one time I said I don't like cheese on all my sandwiches, and it turned into this thing. Right?
No, you said I don't like
capers.
cheese.
I'm not a big. I don't put cheese in
Wait,
everything.
what
that's all.
sandwich do you not put cheese on?
Yeah.
Depends on the sandwich. Like I will eat a grilled cheese. I don't even like what.
Sure.
I had
This
Philly
is
cheesesteak yesterday.
disgusting.
Well, what sandwich do you not put the cheese on?
You know what? You know what? Let me
I
be
do need to hear
specific
this,
here.
yeah.
You're not wiggling out of this.
Yeah, no. Come
sandwiches.
on.
Hey, Flash,
What
I'm glad
sandwich?
you brought that up. And allow me to clarify my stance for you really quick, if you don't mind. I don't like cold cheese on a sandwich. I like the hot sandwich way more than the cold sandwich. So if I'm going to have a sandwich and it's going to be hot, I am
It's literally
totally
on almost
fine.
every cold sandwich, though. Like,
Yeah.
Like I prefer to.
No cheese. Like, what about like an Italian cold cut? No cheese on an Italian cold cut. You're high. You're out of your mind. How about like a tuna sandwich? You have a slice of American cheese on that or something like that. That's pretty good. I like that. Yeah. What are you talking about here, man?
To have the
No
hot sandwich.
no cold sandwich with cheese on it. That's
The
bananas.
hot sandwich is infinitely better.
Do you not like
Okay.
charcuterie boards?
They're fine. Charcuterie boards are fine, but I
They're
stick to the
fine,
meat.
he says.
I stick to the meat. You know, it depends
so
what's on
you
the
don't go to
charcuterie
Jimmy
board.
John's.
Yesterday, we had an opportunity to go to Jimmy John's, but I chose to go to what's the other one? There's another one where they make Phillies there, and I chose that one instead. They were right next to each other. Jimmy John's is fine. I feel like their bread's too cold there, if that makes sense. Like sometimes it's just like they
What?
refrigerate it, and it's I don't know. I feel like it's a little too cold, but either way. So,
What is the matter?
It's a nuanced opinion.
Cold
That's all.
sandwiches are okay. I mean, I'm with you. I prefer the hot sandwich too, but
Yeah. I'm okay with a cold. Yeah, like I mean, sometimes I prefer a cold. Like again, like an Italian cold cut. Sometimes that hits harder than like a cheesesteak. Sometimes it does.
No, the cold
Cheese
they're fine.
Cheese is like almost mandatory for any sandwich. I don't.
I would agree.
Yeah, I don't know. Hey, B-Chain's
This
right.
is almost worse than the cucumbers thing.
No, I told you I like cheese. I just don't like. I prefer the hot sandwich. That's all. You know, if I'm having a meatball sandwich, I'm gonna throw some mozzarella on there or whatever it is. You know,
It's provolone.
Provolone is a cheese.
Ragazzi,
Yeah.
stupido che sei.
Provolone is a cheese.
Cheese. Yeah, provolone's
Are you
cheese.
saying that's not a cheese?
no, I am.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I very much. Are you talking to me or Blabs?
You.
No, I said I do put it on my hot sandwiches. Yeah, I
Okay.
have no problem with that. It's good.
What sandwich do you prefer without cheese?
He says anything cold, but I mean, how many? I mean, if you're making a sandwich, it's going to be cold 99 times out of 100. Because you're, like how often are you going to take the extra time to like grill your sandwich? The most you would do probably is like toast your bread. And then you'd be like, all right, I'm going to make deli meat sandwich. So I'm going to have, some ham, some turkey, some cheese. Maybe if I've got some vegetables, I'll throw some, onion or some lettuce on it. If I'm really going crazy, I'll put some tomato on it. Yeah, cheese makes all of those like way better. For some of them, I would agree with Yellow Flash here that it's like basically mandatory. Yeah, you gotta have cheese on like your cold sandwiches. I mean, not all of them. Like, okay, peanut butter and jelly is not gonna have cheese on it, obviously, but that's not even in the conversation.
I don't know. You'd have to present it to me. Like I don't like a hot ham and cheese. I'm all about a hot ham and cheese. Don't like a cold ham and cheese. Right? It needs to be hot.
How about so let's say it was cold, no cheese, just ham, just a ham sandwich.
So there you go. I just like hot sandwiches. I don't think that's crazy. That crazy of a statement, but
Oh, it's because it's your opinion, therefore it's not that crazy. I see.
no, I don't think it's that crazy.
Blabs men are talking.
What about you?
Tuna
Blabs?
melt?
I don't like tuna at all.
Yeah, I don't like tuna sandwiches either.
I love
Yeah,
tuna
not a
sandwiches.
big fan of the tuna at all.
I like tuna.
Yeah. But hey, B-Chain is right.
I guess the only one that I'm thinking of that actually might work better in terms of like real legitimate sandwich, cold sandwich specifically, that works better without cheese than with might be chicken salad. Chicken salad sandwich might be better. Egg salad. I've never had egg salad with cheese on it. I've never had egg salad with cheese on it. And that's kind of probably, that to me would be like, all right, that might be overdoing it with the amount of like richness throughout of fat in there. That might be overdoing it for me. But I could see that. I could see that going either way. But chicken salad might be better without cheese than with cheese. Everything else though, I'm like cold or hot, I feel like is better with some cheese on it.
2 words, Blabs. Never-ending pasta bowl.
It's true.
That sounds
Let's
fair.
go.
It's a win.
Hey, thank you so much for those 2 words, B-Chain. Appreciate that.
Staple of Italy.
This is wonderful. This is important.
Why go to Italy when you can have it right here down the road?
Delivered right to your face. You just keep shoveling it in, which is wonderful. And by the way, all you can eat soup, salad, and breadsticks. All the zoppa toscana that you can have. That's right. Bada boom! Hey!
No, speech impediment or something.
My name is Stuttering Craig. Crazy McLeod says,
There you go.
Just admit
Gotcha there.
too many people's taste buds are blown out from eating way too much weird stuff. Simple and classic always works. Thank you, McLeod. Appreciate that.
That's like totally like
I can
your
see
opinion,
that.
bro.
As Monty says, Blabs, free breadsticks.
That's the best part. That's the best part.
Sophistically says, I'm going to protect the legals. Believe all Mexicans.
Hiding them from ice.
Mercenary says, I'm half Guatemalan and half German. I'm a mutt. Wow, what a weird combo platter you got
A
there.
bit.
Hyena first.
Not really. Guatemala's pretty close to Argentina. There's a lot of half Germans in Argentina.
Olive Garden is Franco-American food, Italian food. Italians almost never use cream except for provinces near France.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of true, but also again, I mean you see that in like all the Italian American food, like the what is it? Why can't I think of it? Like the chicken, super creamy chicken thing. What the hell? Why can't I think of it? Starts with an A. I want to say like egg. I know I'm wrong.
Also, Mexican food also varies widely by state: goat versus beef versus fish.
It sounds like a very intelligent person. Thank you.
Thanks, Hyena Fur.
Alfredo. God, I got there eventually. Sweet Jesus. Yeah, chicken Alfredo. I got there eventually. But again, I'm like, I feel like you can get chicken Alfredo now in Italy. But that is, unless I'm mistaken, and I'm not, it's an American invention. So like the Italian American stuff does have a lot more stuff in it. A lot of that is also because Italy was poor as shit forever. This is why you got like, if you ever go to an Italian restaurant in America versus Italy, the portions are way bigger. The portions are way bigger because everyone who left Italy was like starving to death. And they're like, oh my God, I can get like meat here in America? That's incredible. I'm going to have a huge, giant meatball. This is incredible.
With the 50
Denny's
says Texas is a culinary epicenter. You got takeout from a petrol station.
Oh my God. Petrol. I'm pretty sure the person who says petrol means you're from the UK. Your country is in no position to speak of culinary anything.
Ian, that's what you don't understand. It's such an epicenter that you can get amazing food from a gas station, right, Blabs?
Listen, I like my Buc-ee's, but he's still got a point, man. He still has a point.
The food is so good in Texas. So good that you can go to a gas station and it'll still be spectacular. That's how good it is.
Okay. Really good gas station food is not a Texas only stuff. All right. If you're living anywhere on, I want to say the East Coast, and it might even be other places now, Royal Farms chicken. You ever had Royal Farms chicken? It's incredible. It's honestly probably the best fried chicken you'll ever have. Other than like super like insanely expensive. We've been doing fried chicken down here in the South for like, 57 generations.
It is, Ian.
So good.
Did we get some booze for Ian?
Oh, what do we got? 50?
Yeah, we had a 50 right
I didn't see
there.
that. Okay.
There we go. Oh, look at that. There you go,
Doink,
Ian.
doink.
Thank you so much for your support.
Glorious.
Well, I have a couple of plus tips. Crumbs for one says there's nothing wrong with some cucumbers
Whoa.
in a taco.
That went on
That's
for a
less
while.
insane than white rice in a burrito.
Well, 76%
What?
of people say you're wrong.
I don't really care. Chat's always against me.
White
for three
rice?
says next time Blabs goes to Texas, give her an
Is white rice in a burrito that crazy? What other kind of rice? I mean, I'm assuming you're talking about white rice specifically, as opposed to other kinds of rice. What other kind of rice are you going to put in your burrito? Yeah, I definitely want white rice for sure.
ultimatum. No, she'd go to Buc-ee's first. We'll have to have either Olive Garden or lasagna soup. I guess I'm skipping to Buc-ee's next time I'm in Texas.
Bullshit.
I will stay strong. I will find something else to eat.
You know, nothing would make me happier than to go sit there and have a Olive Garden dinner, and Blabs just has to sit there like this the entire time. I'm not going to eat your Olive Garden. Meh. Just the entire time.
Why would I want to do that? Why would I want to poison myself?
Oh my God! But you'll have Buc-ee's. Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It says no cheese on your Italian sub. Yeah, the Italian meat sub. I prefer the meats. Yes.
Okay, that's crazy. That's insane. That's actually crazy. You're gonna have an Italian cold cup, but you're gonna just skip the cheese on that? You're out of your mind.
Bentley says, with all this condiment talk,
That's
you may
crazy.
as well play the Grey Poupon clip from Wayne's World for Blabs. Hashtag Montez.
Oh, that's a
I
good one.
remember that. We played that a couple of years ago.
That's right. Drake says, tacos are mostly American food. It's Tex-Mex. So yeah, us white boys gonna be mad. Thanks, Dreg. B-Chain says, here in Connecticut, we call sandwiches grinders. Just saying.
Yeah.
And Sweet Potato Night says, Blabs, you can have my meatball sub anytime. Wink, wink. Don't make it
Wouldn't
weird,
be
Sweet
able to
Potato Night.
find it, homie. Sorry.
Oh, wreck, Sweet Potato Night.
All right. Now, the last half of this Gary's Economics. Will reform win the next UK election? If you missed, yes. If you missed the first half of this, he's saying yes. I don't know why he goes on for another 20 minutes after that. He basically says, yeah, reform's going to win. He lays it out in the first like 10 minutes. What the hell else is he going to say? How reform could be defeated. Centrist, my message to you. The left, how you can win. What will happen if Farage wins? The slide towards extremism. Reform voters, my message to you. Hey, come on, man. Just like, keep doing the Gary's Economics stuff. Just keep sharing these videos. Again, when I was watching this video, I was very much like, look, you know what? I hope they actually do go with the Gary's Economics stuff. They're not going to win. The left, the sort of, the Lib Dems, Liberal Democrats, and the Green Party and Hezbollah, the Jeremy Corbyn, your party thing, which is apparently splitting. Like, apparently that's not even going to be like one party that has to split down the middle because there's factional crap happening there. So the left is like totally fractured in the UK completely. The right is basically like restructuring instead of it being, conservative. It's now just turning into reform conservatism. Conservative party has like, shrunk down and reform is eating it together. So like probably I think it's supposed to be 2029, possibly 2027, but I think it's scheduled for 2029. Reform will probably be pretty close to, if not the only right-leaning party in the UK, and therefore they're just going to annihilate. They're just going to steamroll the election because everybody else is going to be, they would have to have a giant, huge coalition of like 3, 4, 5 different parties to even mount up like an opposition to reform, and they're not going to do that. So there's that. But let's say I hope that the left does go with his stuff because N, they're not going to win, and if they did win, the economic reality is that it's not going to get better. The wealth tax thing, like his specific stuff, even if he was to have like a real full bore wealth tax, we're going to tax everything. We'll have a capital gains tax. We'll have property tax. We'll have blah, 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 all the way down the line. It's not going to help because the UK is so much in debt. Their spending is so wildly outstripped by their ability to gather revenue. And a wealth tax would just diminish their ability to gather revenue even more. That, their problems would just basically accelerate even faster. Hopefully, if they were to have that happen, everybody can realize and go, oh, okay, yeah. We need to move further away from the sort of socialism, communism stuff that we've been doing and we've been like, toying with for a while. We need to get away from that. We need to go back to, some free market stuff, try to actually be able to grow the economy and, free up industry to do things like build houses and blah, 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 all that type of stuff. And that'll actually help us out. But I don't know if that's going to happen because the UK is very much invested in their welfare state. They've been in it for generations, and the NHS is like a sainted, almost like a religion at this point. So I don't know if they're going to be able to get rid of it. They'll probably have to relatively soon, just simply because they won't be able to pay for it at all. And, it'll get massively cut if they don't do it in a more structured sense of like, yeah, we can't pay for all this stuff, so we're going to have to, make some deep cuts. It's going to happen eventually when they have to do it, involuntarily, and they just have to go, all right, we're just going to go across the board, 75% cut to the NHS budget. Like, we just have to do it. Instead of it being more targeted and being like, okay, well, we can cut this program from the NHS, we can do this, we can cut here, we can cut here, we can cut here. They're just going to have to go, nope, unfortunately, it has to be, giant, like 10, 15, 20% cuts, all government spending. Yeah.
That is yet to roll is Labour's rebrand and Labour's new leadership, and in particular what they choose as their economic message. I've been talking to
Not
Labour.
too much,
I'm not
Hanuman.
that popular.
Jesus.
They're not that popular with me either.
Not too much.
I don't think that
What's
much
up with
of
you?
them, but I say that like I want them to win because I think we have a much better chance of getting roll taxes with them than with reform. But I don't think they will. I think they will. I think they'll kind of up. I think they'll probably choose migration. I think
I would
they'll
agree.
end up just boosting the salience of their opponents. And I think Reform and Farage will win the next election. So, what do you think about that? Now, this is quite difficult to talk about, right? Because I try really, really hard on this channel to be non-politically partisan. I am a single issue channel. I'm an economist. I think the issue is inequality and it's about wealth taxes. So how do we do that? And I try my best, and I genuinely want this channel to be watched by people on all sides of the political spectrum, including reform voters. And the country is becoming so divided at the moment between people who like Farage and reform and people who don't, that it's very difficult to send a message that will reach and be listened to all my viewers, because I know we're listened to by people who are on both sides of this. So
I doubt that's the case. I think he's watched primarily, like 80% of the people who watch him are left wing. And I know that because every single video that I've made on him has been flooded by left wing commenters. I think he's got a couple people like me who watch him to be like, all right, let's hear what this guy is saying. He's getting really popular. I think his stuff is reaching a bunch of people. And I'm kind of concerned that these ideas are getting the amount of traction that they are, given how poorly they've performed in the past. Like we've got historical data on how wealth taxes have worked. We know a lot about how taxes function, when they can be raised, when they can't be. If you want more revenue, you can get only a certain amount of taxes out of a population before it starts to drop off. Rapper B Straps, yo, do you remember me? Rappers Best Raps. I think so. When was the last time we talked? Were you commenting or were you in chat? Refresh my memory. I like the name stands out. The name does actually stand out. I'm
gonna try to split my message up into basically two parts. One for people who
used to comment on your ASMR. Yeah. 2 years. Okay, I do remember you now. Yeah. Been a minute then. Yeah.
Don't want reform to win, and then one for people who are maybe supporting reform.
What's been going on? What has been going on, Raps? As you can see, we haven't been doing ASMR for a minute. We have not been doing it for a minute.
Okay, so if you don't want Farage to win, I'm again going to have to split this message up now between the people on the centre, people who might, if you want to know who's on the centre, it's, do you like Keir Starmer? Do you like
Hope you're doing wonderful. I'm doing great.
Do you like Tony Blair?
That's great. I'm
these
doing
kind
pretty
of
good
people who
myself.
like that kind of status quo. What do we want to say to them? And then we're going to talk to people on the left, people who might like Zach Polanski, might like Jeremy Corbyn. What are the risks to both these groups? Okay, if you're on the centre, and you want...
It's okay. Everyone switches what they like doing. I'm glad you think that. That has definitely been my kind of assumption. It's been a bit of a weird transition. Not surprisingly, I think ASMR is a very specific niche. And, getting out of it, going around it, and then keeping the same channel has been definitely very weird. But yeah, I kind of like it. And I feel like we're hitting our stride now. We're kind of ramping back up, and we're able to actually get back to making some cool stuff that might, start being able to grow the channel again, which I'm very optimistic about.
Presumably you want Labour to win. The way that you will lose this next election is by either persisting with a status quo economic policy, which has no salience.
I really do appreciate it.
No cut through, no narrative, or by moving aggressively towards constantly talking about immigration and aggressively raising the salience of your opponents. You need a message which is different from Reform's message. If your message is Reform's message, Reform will win the next election. So that's it. You need your own message. You need your own voice. You need something that's popular, and I'm building it for you.
So I can understand that. I understand, his idea of like, look, you need a message, you need a narrative, you need a specific thing that's like your story. I get it. That is true. However, I will also say, even though, if you can have one, that's great. It's a starting point. That is like the bare minimum. You have to have that to even start to be able to compete. If you don't have it, get out. You're done. You're toast. However, even if you have one, it has to both A, resonate with people, and B, also actually, like be able to produce results. It has to be able to go up against that other narrative and counter it. It has to be able to do it. And I think this one specific issue of wealth tax, while we definitely do see it, because it's a kind of narrative that lends itself to, an adversarial story of like the working class people are downtrodden, they've been abused, and, they are good, noble individuals, all of them, and they've been taken advantage of by those evil, greedy business owners, those evil, greedy millionaires and billionaires, and they are the bad people. And certainly we've seen this before. We've certainly seen this, it's the classic Marxist narrative of you've got the noble put upon proletariat, and you have the evil, corrupt, disgusting bourgeoisie. You have the capitalists, and you have the workers. And certainly that narrative has been played out many times in history in the last 100 years. And maybe in the UK, they haven't been touched by it as much as you would be in something like in Eastern Europe, somewhere like that. They've actually seen it. They've felt it. It's within living memory that they can look at it and say, yeah, I remember people spouting this stuff off. That got my uncle killed. He was put in a gulag. My grandfather was, thrown into a factory when, he was 90 and, died on the fields, or, my brother got disappeared, blah, 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 blah. That stuff's well within their living memory, and therefore they are very aware that, that kind of a narrative that is a Marxist communist narrative is not going to lead to good things, even if it's coming from a place of real, legitimate good intentions. Good intentions don't mean good outcomes. In the UK, however, they have not had that full experience. They've had a little bit of communism, a little bit of socialism, and certainly they are more left-wing than like the US is, or Australia, probably, maybe even Canada. Maybe they might be like neck and neck with Canada, but it is definitely something that they are probably a little bit more amenable to because they haven't felt the badness of it. Similarly to how it is in the US, where, we're now going to have probably a socialist mayor of New York City. And I'm like, great, awesome, fantastic. I love to see it. I hope he wins, and I hope he blows up the city more than it already is. The cities are already not doing good. It does not have, it's not like post Rudy Giuliani where the city's running fantastic and therefore they have a huge giant, treasure chest. Bye for now, buddy. I'm going to Walmart. Best of luck at Walmart. Good store, Walmart. Hope you find some good stuff. Anyway, yeah, so like if they had a huge giant war chest of, we've got a budget surplus, they could probably go around with the, like socialized, state-run grocery stores and these types of things, and like kind of run them at a loss for a little bit of time. But I'll be totally honest, man. New York's not like that. New York City's not like that anymore. It's doing poorly right now. So trying to do these policies that are going to cost more and give you less, they are going to hurt extra because you're already in a downturn position. So it's similarly, with the UK. I don't see this going well for the UK if they go further down the path that has led them to being in this hole. It's like, look, man, you're in a hole. Stop digging. You need to stop digging.
If you want to win the next election and you're on the centre, you don't need to change your opinions on everything, but you do need to be open to doing something on inequality, on wealth taxes, on the economy. You want to be saying we're going to raise tax on the super rich so that we can cut tax on workers. That will boost your economy. That will make you popular. That is how you win.
Okay, actually, no. I think it's pretty fair that that's not the case. You need to cut tax on workers. So I haven't heard him say cut tax on workers before. I have not heard him say that because I'll be totally honest here, man. Like, there aren't taxes on workers in the UK. Correct me if I'm wrong. If I'm talking out of my ass, let me know, please. I would love to know. But I'm pretty sure everything that I've seen and heard from the UK is, and similarly in the US, if you're working class, you're basically not taxed. You get like almost all your money back in refunds in the US. In the UK, I don't even know if you are taxed like at all. I'm not sure what the tax like thing is, but I'm pretty sure because I know they have a progressive tax rate, so the people who are on the lowest income bracket pay the least in taxes. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm positive I'm correct.
That is how you win, and I want you to be really, really mindful of that when you're thinking about.
But again, like if you're cutting taxes on the working class are a lot of people. They're paying a good amount of revenue because there's just purely because there's a lot of them. And here's the other thing. When you had these, super high taxes in like the 50s, I think it was, he likes to point to those things. You also had way higher taxes on poor people. Like you had, let's say it was something along the lines of like 60, 70, 80% tax rate on like the top 1%. The bottom 50% had like a 30% tax rate. Like they had much higher taxes in the past. That's definitely true.
About who is the next Labour leader and what she supports. Now, if you're on the left, I think the real risk to the left at this point is with the real growth, the aggressive growth in the popularity of Farage and Reform and things like the March, which happened last weekend. I think there is a risk that the left gets very, very angry and starts to be really, really aggressive and accusatory towards people who might be voting for Reform. I want to.
Yeah, they might start doing that. That might be something possibly, maybe, that could happen in the future. It's definitely not happening now, though.
I'll show you a clip which I saw on Politics Joe the other weekend. So let's run it. This is Politics Joe talking to some Reform, passionate supporters, people who've gone to the conference.
This is the LBC guy?
Wealth tax or no wealth tax?
No.
It's a very hard one. I mean, I come from a working class town. Everything in kind of Reform's policies would maybe leaning more towards no wealth tax.
So for me, if the wealth tax was possible, I'm at a stage in my politics where I would actually support it.
There are a lot of Reform voters who'd be supportive of wealth taxes. I know that a lot of people are scared of the growth of Reform, and the truth is, I am scared of the growth of Reform as well. I know that a lot of people who watch this channel, who see themselves as from the left, are probably people who are very interested in politics, people who are very knowledgeable about politics. Just the very fact that you're here watching this video means you are probably somebody who is interested in and knowledgeable about politics. I would like you to understand that the vast majority of people in this country are not experts in politics. They read very little about politics.
I will also say that most of the people watching these things and are very knowledgeable about politics are not actually knowledgeable about politics. They watch a lot of videos on this stuff. It's their hobby. It's their hobby. They are not necessarily super well educated. And I'm happy to include myself in that. Happily.
They have not spent loads and loads of time thinking and researching politics. And they get their information from the media or from social media. And what they have been...
So that's exactly what, you know, the people who are very interested in it and very knowledgeable about it, that's exactly the same thing that these other people are doing. It's just they're doing it at like a terminal amount. They're doing the exact same level of research and education. They're just doing a lot more of it so that they think they're more informed. It's like, no, you're exactly as informed. You're just way more like zealous about it.
Told and are being told consistently in the media is that the reason you are poor, the reason your kids can't get a house, the reason you can't get a job is because of immigration or because of illegal immigration, because of refugees. That's what they're being told. They're being told that again and again and again and again and again.
Is that the mainstream like media position in the UK? I mean, I'm not in the UK, but I haven't seen that. I have not seen that. Maybe I'm just, you know, not, again, I'm not seeing it, but that's not what I've heard at all.
And so this is where they are. This is what they think. This is what they're being told. They think that the reason they're being poor is because of immigration. And if they go to a protest...
Now, I will say, I don't know if that's the only factor, but I think it's fair to say that that is a factor. And it's not... I don't think, it shouldn't be racist to say, yeah, if there's more people here competing for the same number of jobs, certainly competing for the same number of houses, then yeah, those houses are going to be, then yeah, like, you know, you'll not be able to afford it. That's fair, and I think that's completely, I mean, that's true. That is true.
Or, you know, they speak online about this and somebody gets in their face and calls them a racist, that's not going to win them over. You're not going to win these people over like that. I totally understand the instinct of people on the left to worry about increasing racism in society. I think it's happening. I can feel it happening. You need to be pragmatic. You need to be sensible. If you want to get progressive change in the next election, you need to win people over. And I think you need to be really careful to resist the temptation to go around shouting at people, calling them racists. Listen, there are racists in this country. There always have been racists in this country. There's always been 100,000, 200,000 people who vote for the BNP and might have been voted by racism, might have been motivated by racism. Reform are going to win the next election, and you are not going to stop that by turning around and calling people racists. You need to do, and I know this might not be pleasant for some of you, I think my brother's right. You need to be relentless and aggressive in your pursuit of common ground and unity. And that means you're willing to go to people who you might not agree with everything about and say, listen, I know we don't agree on everything, but let's find the thing that we do agree on. And let's fight for that.
Okay. Are they going to do that? Do you think that's, I mean, would that be a winning strategy? Maybe. Would this be a winning strategy? Maybe. I will say again, I think the people that you're going to recruit are not going to be from the reform stuff, because unfortunately it's not, oh man, you know, if we start calling them racist, you know, we're going to just, you know, alienate them. You've already been calling them racist. You've been doing it for, you know, 10, 15 years. They've already been called racists, so they're already against you. I don't see that, you know, all of a sudden, oh, okay, now let's see where we agree. And it's like, nah, that ship has sailed.
Because those people at those protests.
And now you're trying to go, okay, well, shit, we can't get our political, you know, project off the ground without them. Okay, well, now we'll start treating them like human beings. And it's like, okay, you think they don't know that? You think they're not going to be able to sense that now you need them and now you're trying to be nice to them. It's like, no, you sneered at me for the last decade, and anytime I had an opinion that didn't agree with you, you know, you got me fired, you called me racist, you spit in my face, you know, pepper sprayed me, you beat me up, you killed me. Something, I mean, that's just not realistic to think that you're just gonna, turn the shit around. Seems super unlikely to me. Again, not to say you shouldn't do it, but be aware it's going to be an uphill battle, and reform is still going to win the next election. This would just be something that would actually heal your society. And I will also say, I don't know how many people on the left in Britain are really 100% full bore, still like, yeah, man, total open borders, unlimited immigration, illegal, legal, 100%. I don't know how many people agree with that in the UK. In the US, it's very clear, you know, decided and declared in a loud voice, no, we're done with it. Which is why, Trump won the way that he did. I don't know what that is in the UK now. I don't know where that is. My guess is it's similar, especially because of the fact that you have, a smaller country. The impact of the illegal immigration in the UK seems to be, and kind of like almost has to be, much more intense because of, just the population, the demographics and stuff. It has to be bigger. And therefore, I've got to imagine the resistance to it has to be even greater. So it's like, let's say it's 60% of people agree on, immigration reform, no more illegal immigration stuff in the US. And I think it's probably more than that. But it would have to be like, I would imagine 80% in the UK. I would imagine that's probably the case. I could be wrong. And that could be totally reversed, because I do think it is probably closer to like 80-20. I think probably 80% of people agree on immigration in the US, like where we are with it, where it's just like, okay, no, it's too much. The giant wave of legal immigration under Biden was unacceptable. We have to deal with it. We have to get rid of it. Maybe you don't agree with Trump's policy on, how it's going to get done, but you want it taken care of. Maybe in the UK it's a little bit different. Maybe in the UK it is more like a 60-40 thing, where it's like 60% of people are saying, yeah, no, enough is enough. But we don't know how to get it done. I don't know. But again, I mean, I don't know how many of those people you're going to be who are like up for being recruited to your side. I don't know.
They, just like you, are struggling to pay the rent. Their kids are struggling to pay the rent. They're struggling to find economic futures. If you center that, if you focus on that, you can build something positive, you can win them over. If you focus on what divides you, all you're going to do is make this country more and more divided. So that's it, I think really, in politics, as in history, division loses. I think you can afford to find your differences and fight over them when you are winning. If you are losing, you need to find unity. And it's as simple as that, basically.
I can see that.
If people on the left and on the centre are able to be aggressive and relentless in their pursuit of common ground, they can win. And I think that common ground is the economy. I think it's inequality. I don't see any other way of stopping reform.
So the economy is a rallying cry that would unify people. I can agree with that, yes. Because I think everyone would agree that the economy is not, or maybe not everybody, but a lot of people, certainly, the majority of people in the UK would agree the economy is doing poorly. I agree. Now, will they agree on why it is doing poorly? Maybe. But would they be right in that? Like, could you create a narrative where in which, you get 60-70% of the people to agree the economy is bad and this is why? Yeah, you probably could. Does that mean that that's the reason why? Depends on what the reason is. Is it, okay, we're not taxing rich people enough? If that's the thing that you go for, and that's, the policy projections that you make, and that's the tax policy that you enact, I'm 100% sure it's not going to solve the issue. because that's not the underlying issue. The underlying issue is you're spending more than you're making. Trying to make more by raising taxes, on the wealthiest people who are the most mobile and can leave the easiest, and also have the greatest incentive to leave because they can go anywhere else and they can be treated even better, and their lifestyle is not going to be massively impacted because they're rich here. They're rich in the US, they're rich in the UK, they're rich in Saudi Arabia, they're rich in Dubai, they're rich in Ireland. They can literally just go across channel or whatever the hell it's called, go to Ireland and be treated tax fantastically. Do you think that's not going to happen? Do you think that's impossible? Seems pretty possible to me. And then they're going, okay, well, you've just lost all of that revenue. So now, not only did you not cut the stuff that you're spending, not only are you still spending more than you're making, now you're making less. So, again, go ahead and try. It doesn't affect me. I'm not in the UK. It doesn't affect me. So, if you enact this policy, you're going to be, you're sowing the wind and will reap the whirlwind.
If that's what you want to do, if you want to stop reform, if you want to see a more equal country, you need to focus on that in your arguments. Find that common ground. Focus on your common ground and unity when you speak to other people. So I'm going to have a word for people who want reform to win. But before that, I just want to talk a little bit about what happens if reform do win. And I know we have viewers all over the country. It's not just reform here, because the far right are winning and are about to win all over the world. My big concern, if reform win, is not actually really Farage and reform. It's not the current far right. I know these guys get called fascists and they get called racists. I don't think they are all fascists and racists. My big concern...
Whoa! Cancel him immediately. That is definitely not the case. They are definitely all fascists and racists. It's insane that you're trying to bring the temperature down. This is ridiculous. Get Destiny in this case.
When reform get into power, the same thing will happen to reform as what happened to Labour, what happened to Rishi Sunak, what has happened to Trump, even what happened to Biden, what has happened to basically every politician and political party in the last 15 years. They come in, they don't deal with the fundamental economic problem, which is growing inequality. Living standards worsen, and they find themselves in the same situation Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer found themselves in, which is like, okay, we're failing on the economy, we're super unpopular, we need to roll the dice, we need to rebrand. What do we do? And you have this situation here where Labour are kind of stuck in the centre, and when you're in the centre, you don't really know where to go. I said this about Trump before he came in, and I think it's proving true, and I'll say the same about reform, is when they come in, their economic policies aren't working. The obvious political move is to say, this is because we are not going far enough on immigration. I think it's just so, and you can say, look,
are Trump's economic policies not working? I think we've kind of demonstrated, I've watched a decent number of videos to go, it actually seems like, his stuff is working. We have been getting some movement on stuff. Obviously it's a big, large economy. It's a large ship to right. Let's put it that way. It's going to take some time. It's absolutely going to take some time. I think he's going in the right direction, and he's getting signals that are saying, yeah, this is the right path. This is the right move. We're doing good stuff. Will it end up with like 100% pure total victory? Everything's rosy and all this kind of stuff? Probably not. Maybe, but probably not. And there will be, second, third order consequences for sure. Absolutely. I don't think Trump has also gone like, oh, okay, the economic stuff isn't any better. We need more immigration stuff. It's like, if anything, he's kind of slowed down on the immigration stuff. Most people are kind of like, yeah, no, keep doing the immigration stuff. We voted for, well, not me, but, voted for, mass deportations. People were, planning on that. So, there's not really any further to go on immigration.
Because
and the immigration stuff in terms of like incoming people in the U.S. has been pretty close to straight up solved.
blocked. Labour are blocking us, or the courts are blocking us, or the European Court of Human Rights are blocking us, or the academics are blocking us, or the lefties are blocking us, or the Guardian's blocking us. And you can say the reason that the economy is not working.
And I mean, those are all true. Like, certainly in the UK, that is absolutely true. You know, a lot of these places are being blocked by, you know, your opposition, these types of things. Which is why, you know, again, Trump was able to do a lot of stuff because he comes in with a giant political mandate and keeps getting, you know, every couple months a new reason for it. Like, I mean, you know, you have Charlie Kirk getting assassinated. That's a big, giant, another mandate. Come on, go ahead, Trump. We got your back. Keep going. Go further. Go faster. We want it. We need it. We need to see it. Keep going. As opposed to Trump, well, you know, when he said Trump first term, absolutely, this is the case. People were absolutely blocking him. You know, he comes into politics. He doesn't really know how it works. Same thing with, you know, the UK. I mean, you know, you absolutely have these vested interests. And I mean, a lot of them are on either side, which is they don't want to do anything that will jeopardize their own political future and their own kind of, you know, like grift. They're getting paid as politicians pretty well. They're getting houses. They're getting, you know, all this shit for free. They don't want to do anything that's going to potentially, you know, rock the boat. And that is absolutely something that, you know, has bitten them. And reform would be different because they probably have more, you know, new people in there. You know, they don't have the same, you know, like career. I mean, I'm sure they're going to have some career politicians, but they're going to have a bunch of people that are, you know, otherwise were unelectable and now are doing, you know, different stuff.
Is because we are not being aggressive enough on immigration. So at the moment, the emphasis is on illegal immigration or asylum seekers. And okay, you leave the European Court of Human Rights, you know, the Convention on Refugees, and you say the UK doesn't accept any refugees. Done. That's not going to fix the economy. I guarantee you. I'll bet you any money that will not fix the economy.
Sure.
Then you say, okay, well, you know, the reason for that is because, you know, that was just one part of migration. You know, look at all the enormous amounts of legal migration. And legal migration is much, much, much bigger than asylum seeking. So, okay, we need to get rid of legal migration. And if you do that, that's not going to fix the economic problem. So you get rid of legal migration. You're still not fixing the economic problem.
Yeah.
What do you do next? Well, the obvious place.
Now, again, this is true. So let's say you were to just, you know, the UK just straight up says, all right, no more new people come in. Okay, is that going to fix the economy? No. Agreed. Because you're already in a hole and you're already continuing to dig that hole. You're already continuing to go, all right, we're spending more than we have. We're spending more than we have because we have, you know, a whole bunch of people covered by this welfare state, by the NHS, all these types of things. And you've got pensions, you got all of that stuff. We're having to pay all of that stuff. We're not growing the economy fast enough to offset those rising costs. We are also, you know, making things more expensive because we're importing more people. Now, we're not going to start importing, we're not going to be importing any more people. Okay, so the problem of things getting more expensive is not going to get worse, but it's still bad enough. It's still bad. So, unless you were to lower the amount of people, and I mean, some of that's going to happen naturally because of, you know, like people just normally die every year. So the amount of people in a country, you know, if you weren't breeding, if you weren't having, you know, if you weren't reproducing in these things and you're not importing more people, then yeah, the amount of people in your population is going to decrease. That's true. But again, you're not going to be offsetting this. You would need to basically say, all right, you would need to basically, I mean, yeah, you'd essentially need to go, all right, you know, we're going to try to deal with illegal immigration the way the US is, which is to say, all right, we're going to stop illegal immigration. I don't know what legal immigration changes have been for the US, not sure. And then we're also going to start to, you know, deport people. If we find someone who's here illegally, they're leaving. They're going back to their country of origin. They're going back to France. They're going back to wherever. We're going to get rid of them. That would then start again, it would stop the bleeding. It would stop the bleeding. Is it going to fix the economy? No, it's not going to fix the economy because you're still spending more than you're making, more than you're, gathering through tax revenue. That's true. You would have to do both. You would have to both grow the economy by, probably cutting taxes for everything and making the country more, attractive to investment. And then you're also going to have to cut spending. That's the only way you're going to deal with this stuff because, your debt is the real problem / also it's the indicator of your real problem.
Place to go next is to say, well, that wasn't enough because we've already had too much migration. Right? So you go back and you look at people who have recently migrated in the last 5 years, in the last 10 years, and you say, okay, we need to get rid of recent migrants. These people might be British citizens in many cases. They might have permanent.
No, I mean, you don't have to do that. You can literally just say, hey, we'll get rid of the illegal migrants. We'll get rid of the illegal people.
Residency. So you start to kick out recent migrants.
The recent. Yeah.
What my real concern is this can keep going further, and then you can start scapegoating more groups.
You could, but realistically, I mean, let's be totally honest here. If they were to say, oh, it's because of the migrants, then, we haven't gone far enough on it. People, if shit doesn't actually get any better, they're going to notice quickly, okay?
There was a clip online. Did you see that clip with the Fox News anchor saying he thinks we should kill homeless people? Let's get this on.
Where is it?
Okay. Yes, there was a clip on the right-wing American station recently, Fox News, where they're talking about how to deal with the problem of homelessness. This is not the future. This is today.
Either you take the resources that we're going to give you, or you decide.
Brutal North Carolina murder highlights soft on crime policies. So this is in response to the Irina Zarutska being straight up murdered for doing nothing because of a crazy person that was arrested or in police custody or brought up to the police 14 times and just let out. Yeah, go nuts, man. His mother had called him, says, hey, this guy's not taking his medicine. We need these things. Now there's a dead person. All right, so this is the result. Let's give some context. Let's hear it, though. Let's hear what he says.
That you're going to be locked up in jail. That's the way it has to be now.
Or involuntary lethal injection or something. Just kill.
Yeah.
Brian, why did it have to get to this point?
Right.
Yeah. So not homeless people. Wasn't talking about homeless people. He was saying, hey, you've got people that are doing crimes all the time, nonstop, bing, bang, boom, and they're just let out. These are the people that are, destroying your cities because they are repeat offenders. At a point, they're going, the one guy, the black guy was saying, look, at a point, just lock him up and throw away the key. And the other guy's going, yeah, or kill him, give him the death penalty. This is, and let's put it this way. I don't think there's a lot of people that would be like, oh yeah, this guy that, stabbed that woman in the throat, bleeds out on the subway for the doing nothing. I don't know how many people are going, yeah, that person doesn't deserve the death penalty. I think a lot of people are like, yeah, kill him. Absolutely. We don't want that person in society anymore. That person has revoked their membership to the human race. They're out, they're done, they're over. That's a lot of people. So he definitely, he said, Gary Stevenson said that there was a Fox News anchor who said, you know what? We're just going to kill homeless people. That's what he said. That's not what the guy said. Now, is what he said not great? Yes, I would agree. But there's a lot more context that he's just ignoring. But I want to hear what he says about it.
I think that really happened, by the way. This is a really genuine thing that happened in the US, which is a Fox News host suggested that the way to deal with the problem of homelessness.
Nope, not homelessness.
is to execute all the homeless people.
Nope, not at all what he said. Not at all. Not at all. Nope. Straight up didn't say that. He was talking about people that were repeat offender criminals, might have been homeless, probably mentally deranged people. Again, like the guy who killed Irina Zarutska, who had been in jail or police custody or, arrested or something 14 times. His mom was like, yeah, he's dangerous. He's out there. He's not taking his medicines, blah, 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 blah. How do we deal with those people? How do you as a society deal with people that are repeat, nonstop offenders? Do you just continue letting them, arresting them and then letting them go? Or do you say, you know what, this person is just going to continue committing crimes and they're going to continue being bad and eventually they're going to be horrible? Shouldn't we as a society do something to stop that? Now, maybe that's, like people have talked about bringing back asylums because, a lot of these people that are mentally ill don't want to take their medication. And it's horrible, as a sort of enlightened society to be like, yeah, all right, those people maybe need to be in a place where they're forced to take their medication, and it's horrible to think of, but maybe that's necessary. And the other side of it is if you don't deal with them, you're going to get stuff like this where you have random attacks by lunatics on the streets, some of which are going to be horrible, murders. And, not only is that horrible for, the person who's killed and their family, but it's also bad for society because it's like, all right, if at any point in time you can just be walking down the street, you can just sit down on a bus and there's a random crazy person who's going to kill you, you're probably not going to go out often. Maybe. Am I crazy? But yeah, so Gary's saying, hey, the way to solve homeless people is just to kill them. No, that's not true.
So, and I'm not saying that Farage wants this, and I'm not saying even that Trump wants this. But when your plan to deal with the economy is to scapegoat a group of people, and then you hit that group of people, you kick them out of the country, and it doesn't work, and you're unpopular, the obvious thing to do next is to go harder. And you're seeing this now, you're seeing on the biggest news channel in the US.
No, but whatever.
Anchors suggesting the thing to do is to murder all the homeless people.
Nope.
Listen, I'm not saying Farage wants to do that, right? I'm an economist. I think
I feel like you're kind of suggesting it, especially because you're, bringing it up in relations to Farage and saying, hey, once they, don't work, they're going to go harder. Like this. I'm not saying he wants to do this, but it would be like this. It would be very similar to this. I'm not saying he wants it, though. You're kind of saying he wants it.
They will fail on the economy. The obvious political move will be to go further. And I am very, very worried about where this could go in the end. And I would like that, hopefully, to sharpen your mind, both if you want Farage to win and if you don't want Farage to win. But listen, if they win, I think we do need to be ready for this because I think they probably will win. There will also be massive political opportunity, which is the sense that at the moment, Farage has the phenomenal strength of never having been in power, which means that he cannot be blamed for any of the economic weaknesses that the UK is in. Because the Conservatives were in for 14 years, they failed, Labour have been in for a year, they are failing and will keep failing, and he has this ability to say, well, I have this magic bullet and it's going to work. When he comes in, just as Trump has just come in, living standards will keep falling, and we need to be ready to say what I've always said, which is this is what will happen if you don't deal with inequality. Until and unless we have a powerful and cohesive narrative, a powerful story, which I think should be about inequality and about billionaires, the only political space, because the centre is obviously failing, will be to go further and further right. Okay, now I want to go on to the people who want reform to win. I went on LBC yesterday, on Tom Swarbrick's show. I did a live phone in, and somebody called in and he said, he said that he's a fan of the channel, so he might be out there watching today, and he says he enjoys the videos and he enjoys the stuff that we put out. But he said to me, you're not going to win, because what I care about is immigration, and there's millions of us in this country that what we care about is immigration. And maybe not you, talking to me, maybe not you, Gary, you don't maybe do this, but your supporters, they turn around to us and they call us bigots and they call us racists. And I'm not a racist, I just...
Yeah. And I mean, that's what I said earlier. It's not about, oh man, I know once these, if these people win or these types of things, it's like, you're going to turn around and call them racist. I was like, no, that ship has sailed. They've already been called racist for the past 10, 15 plus years, because they're going, yeah, we do seem to be kind of, the country seems to be changing pretty radically, really quickly. And it doesn't seem to be getting better. So, well, you're a racist, shut up.
I'm just worried about immigration. I want there to be less immigration. This is what this guy said to me. And I just want to make it very, very clear, because I know probably if you are a Reform voter, you might be hearing things online about me, that I'm a radical leftist or whatever. There is a space for you here. I do this for you, not just only for you, but I do this for all of the hardworking men and women in this country and across the world who see their living standards falling.
This is interesting. I think he's kind of like shaken by that. I think he's a little bit like, oh shit, yeah, we're gonna lose, and we're not getting anywhere with this, because this is, very reasonable person saying this kind of stuff, and is saying, look, this is the issue that I'm concerned about. And, there's a lot of people on it. And, Nigel Farage is basically doing the same thing that I'm doing, Gary Stevenson. Only he's been doing it for, the past 5 years. He's got, a way better, political machine behind him. He knows how to do that stuff. So me doing my stuff on YouTube is great. But, Farage basically has, a head start on me, and also is a little bit more equipped for, him doing it on his side. And I would also say, I don't think Farage is like a super single issue guy. I know immigration is like the main thing he's banging on about. I get it. But I do think he probably seems to have a little bit more of a comprehensive, economic plan, political ideology behind him, as opposed to being, only thing I care about is inequality and wealth tax.
Okay, I know it's broken. I know it's not working. And I know when you look at the politicians around you, you see a lot of people who think are pretty shit. And if I'm honest, I think the same thing as you. I understand that. And that's exactly why I do what I do. I walked away from a lot of money to do this, because I could see the way the country was going. I know that there's not a lot of great political leaders out there. I don't trust the guys that are leading you. They are very, very wealthy people. They're funded by very, very wealthy people. Their plan is to cut the taxes of very, very wealthy people, and to fund that by cutting your public services, your education, the NHS, the things that you need. That's not going to work out well for you and your kids. There's a space for you here. I don't take sides. I'm an economist. I do what I do for the future of this country, for the future of ordinary people like you, families like yours, your kids, your grandkids. I'm a very good economist. I've got a very good track record. I've got a lot of educational videos which I put up here for free, which you can watch for free to understand what's happening. If you do not deal with growing inequality, the living standards of your kids and your grandkids will get worse and worse and worse and worse. There's a space for you here.
Now, is that true? If inequality gets worse and worse and worse, does it follow necessarily that the living standards of your kids and grandkids will get worse? Sounds like yes, but it's actually no. Inequality could get way worse. The gap could get way wider. But let's say, you start here. This is the bottom of the barrel, bad, terrible, super poor. And this is the super rich, massively crazy, this kind of stuff, right? Okay. I'm going to try to, let me see if I can see my hands here. All right. Let me see. All right. So let's say this is more inequality. All right. Now we're going to shift it over to here. Okay. Your living standards went up. Inequality got worse. That happens. That's a thing.
And I know when I say that I don't trust your leaders, you're going to turn around and you're going to point to Keir Starmer and you're going to say, well, I don't trust him either. And the truth is, I agree with you. I wish we had more good political leaders, and at the moment, maybe we don't. I'm working hard to build that, and I would like your support. We're building something here that's going to put more money in your pocket. That's going to be...
All right, okay. This is just a recruiting message for him. Okay, that was cool. All right, so what does he think? He thinks reform's going to win the next UK election. I agree. The reasons, kind of correct. I do think that people are actually concerned about immigration in the UK for legitimate reasons. And, you know, those legitimate reasons partially are economic. I do think there is an economic, detriment to unchecked mass migration, illegal immigration, all that kind of stuff. I think there is. I think there's plenty of data to support that. And just, you know, basic economics 101 logic to be applied there. Like, okay, hey, like, you know, there's more people in the country. That means more people are competing for the same amount of stuff. Yeah, things are going to get more expensive. That's literally like what? Supply and demand, day one, freshman, macro shit. Easy. Okay, so that's for real. And then the other side of it is also, you know, the fabric of your country is changing for a lot of people. You know, in certain areas, it's like, yeah, you know, like the country's unrecognizable. And people don't necessarily like that. Some people do, some people don't. The people that don't, their opinion is just as valid as the people that go, it's great, it's awesome that, you know, we have a whole bunch more new restaurants and, you know, it's a vibrant community. It's like, okay, the people that go, you know what, no, I liked it the way that it was, that's equally as valid. Okay. And if there's more of those people, then yeah, you know what? They get to have their say in an election and vote the person in that they want. It's totally reasonable for them to go, yeah, you know what? No, we elect a country the way that it was. And 53% of people said they agreed. Those people got in. Those people that, you know, were elected to represent those 53% of people's views go, all right, we're going to try to make it back the way that it was. And here's how we're going to do it. That's all good. That's all cool. So immigration is the thing that they're, you know, kind of harping on because it's the most visible symptom. And then it is also, you know, the reason why I think mass migration in the UK has happened so much, and, you know, both sides have been supporting it, has had to do with the underlying economic issue of you're spending too much money. You're spending too much money. Your revenue is small. It's, you know, you're not raising enough money to pay for all your services. And none of the politicians want to cut any of the services. So how do they do it? Well, they've got to finance debt to pay, you know, to basically, you know, borrow money to pay for your services. And they do that by increasing the amount of people in the nation. And they do that via mass migration because, you know, the native population is not reproducing at a growth level anymore. It's basically just replacement. They're just like, okay, you know, 2 people, man and woman, they're going to have 2 kids. 2 kids replace them because those 2 parents are going to die eventually. You know, as opposed to, oh, hey, you know, you have 2.4 kids. The nation's growing then. If you have, you know, 1.2 kids, the nation is shrinking. It's collapsing. You're having a population collapse. Okay. So if that's what they want to do, then, you know, and that is, I think, kind of sort of maybe close to where the UK is, where it's, you know, it's like, let's say 1.9 replacement rate. So they have to bring in more people. They bring in more people via immigration. And that's to service this, you know, growing debt crisis, blah, 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 blah. So, immigration sort of solves some issues in the short term. It also creates problems, which would be, you're not able to finance debt as easily, and therefore, paying for those same amount of services is going to be impossible. So you will end up having to cut those things. Now, that's kind of what's going to have to happen anyway. That's sort of kind of what's going to have to happen anyway. Now, maybe you can get to a place where, your economy is growing fast enough again that you could, bring a lot of those services back. And, your population is not growing via, immigration, these types of things. So you can figure out exactly, okay, how many people are we going to have in the future? And therefore, here's how fast we need to grow the economy to pay for all of these services in the future, blah, 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 blah. But again, to do something like that, you're probably going to need something along the lines of like a Javier Milei Argentina situation where you cut a ton of stuff, and it's going to be painful. Especially in the UK, it's going to be very painful. There's no doubt about it. But the flip side of that is your kids can have a future. And it's a more free future where in which, you've got a lot more opportunity. And, you're seeing that in Argentina now. You saw that with Margaret Thatcher. We're hopefully, fingers crossed, doing enough in the US to see that under Trump in the future. That would be great. I think that would be fantastic. And that would be my hope. But again, I'm like, yeah, it's like, do I think this, do I think the inequality stuff is actually the root of the problem? No, it just does. I understand why he's using it. It's an easy wedge issue. It's an easy issue to point to. There's a lot of historical precedent of people demonizing the rich people in society and then using them to, climb the social ladder. That's normal. It happens all the time. It unfortunately always ends in, dictatorship and dead people. So that's not great. All right.
2 people were killed and another was wounded after a gunman opened fire on an ICE field office in Dallas, Texas. The victims were detainees of ICE and no members of law enforcement were harmed. The shooter, who reportedly used a sniper rifle, died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound, according to latest reports. Here was Senator Ted Cruz reacting to the news.
This needs to stop. Violence is wrong. Politically motivated violence is wrong. It was 2 weeks ago today that we saw a political assassination in Utah that tore the heart out of much of this country. This is the 3rd shooting in Texas directed at ICE or CBP. This must stop. To every politician who is using rhetoric demonizing ICE and demonizing CBP, stop. To every politician demanding that ICE agents be doxxed and calling for people to go after their families, stop. This has very real consequences. Look, in America, we disagree. That's fine. That's the democratic process. But your political opponents are not Nazis.
And FBI Director Kash Patel said that one of the recovered shell casings had the message anti-ICE inscribed upon it, which he says points to an ideological motivation on the part of the killer.
Shocking.
So this is a terrible tragedy. You should note that while that message would suggest an anti-ICE kind of left-wing political affiliation, so the person fired blindly at random at this van and actually struck detainees, not law enforcement agents. It'd be horrible regardless of who was struck, obviously,
right?
Because killing people is bad, Amber, as I know that you agree, and most of us all agree on that. There is a little bit of liberal, apoplexy right now that we've now had a string of instances where there is a plausible left-wing motivation. I saw Yashar Ali tweet something that was like, I don't really believe this. This is also the anti-ICE message.
Right.
Would someone who hates ICE really say that? Yes.
Yeah.
That Evan Dorff, whoever that person is.
Yeah.
Freak,
sick
just
freak.
a left-wing lunatic, really. But because there has been so much, and I'm happy to all day push back on a lot of what I see from various folks on the right saying this proves how everyone on the left is so violent and they're hunting us and we have to, bring the full weight of the government down to destroy them and cripple them.
I'm in agreement with him on the latter part of that.
Would push back on virtually all of that, but I know that the left has made the argument, a very incomplete one to my mind, about the connection between right-wing political rhetoric and right-wing violence, something I never believed in, I never thought was very well supported by the actual instances of violence we see. So now the shoe is on the other foot and they're going, wait a minute, this was stochastic terrorism. What are you talking about? It's not our words that connect to this. I'm like, well, to be clear, I certainly don't think your words should be censored or constrained.
But it does seem like your words are kind of motivating this. Yeah, a little bit.
Because of this, but you were the people making the argument that they were connected.
Yeah, and if you look at the supposed right-wing terror attacks that they link to conservatives, the language is never the same. It's usually like really white supremacist language. They say that's right-wing by nature, but there's not like major right-wing or conservative commentators on television saying white supremacist things. But then when you look at the people who are committing,
would say yes, there is, but I don't think
they're dog whistles, I guess. But then on the left, you see people using the exact same language that leftist commentators use, like fascist or ISIS or Nazis, Gestapo, etc. So there is a closer connection, I think, rhetorically to left-wing violence than there is right-wing violence. The Atlantic actually did an analysis of the numbers since 2016 because a lot of the studies that exist go back to the 60s and 70s and are all-inclusive. They decided to look at more recent times, basically the last
That's reasonable.
10 years, and they did find a really significant uptick in left-wing violence since Trump became a politician, and found that it far outpaced right-wing violence. And even in just the past
that's the
month
Atlantic.
or so, we've had the Annunciation school shooting, we've had the attempted bombing of the Fox News van, the murder of Charlie Kirk. There's been multiple attacks on ICE facilities, including the ambush in McAllen, Texas, now this one in Dallas, Texas. There was the Free Palestine shooter at the country club in New Hampshire, multiple vandalization incidents of Charlie Kirk memorials, as well as assaults at some of the memorial services. So
vandalization is a little bit, I don't know, it's not violence.
Just in the past month,
it's not a good look, but it's not violence.
It seems like you can't escape it.
Yeah, sure. I know, and then left-wing people will bring up Dylan Roof and some other. There was that guy in was it Arizona or Texas and the mall. They'll say those things, and to me it doesn't matter, right? Because violence is just wrong, and whether these things connect. Then there are people who don't even have a necessarily discernible political motive, like the person who shot Trump in Butler, who I guess it's political, but he's crazy. The person who shot Gabby Giffords was just...
Which is, that's kind of the whole idea of, unless I'm mistaken, I'm going to say that's the whole idea of stochastic terrorism, which is essentially, you're utilizing the fact that there are a ton of lunatics out there. And therefore, if you call people, Nazis, like, we can say all these types of things. It's terrorism caused by deliberately inflammatory rhetoric in mass media, which can provoke certain people with certain sets of personality traits and opinions into violence. So it's literally like, they're calling you Nazi and fascist, and, they're saying Trump is the worst person on the planet, blah, 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 for the express purpose of getting him killed by a crazy person.
Crazy, the person who it's hard to even parse, and whether.
But that would be, that would be like a perfect example of like, the end result of stochastic terrorism.
You can point to the rhetoric getting strong, getting more heated or less heated, and then there's more violence or there's less violence. It's just not at all. It's not at all clear to me. And I think it is. My bottom line is it's used as a pretext for censorship on both sides. It's people
totally
my
understand
speech is
why you'd be
fine,
against that.
But my political enemy's speech, must be dealt with whatever, some vast campaign of, if it's deplatforming and it's private action, okay, fine, you can advocate for that, that's fine. But some of the stuff I see from Matt Walsh has been on a tear lately. We must destroy their networks. What does that even mean, man? There's a lot of tweeting.
Well, I assume it means using RICO cases to go after the funding streams for groups like Antifa or some of the trans-terror groups like the Zivians.
Do groups like Antifa have funding streams, though? I'm very doubtful on that.
I think it's worth investigating because I think
a bunch of. I don't think these people have a lot of money. Is how I would put it.
Well, that's
they've got enough to be doing that stuff. So where's that coming from?
The whole point is that's the point is how are they able to afford to fly to DC like multiple times a year and show up at every political protest?
I mean, they think, I'm sure left-wing people think the Proud Boys are funded by the Kochs or by, I don't know, Sheldon Adelson or something, when it's just there's some small number of political activist kook people on the right and the left who like beating each other up and marching down the street, smashing windows, and I've seen the left do it, and I've seen the right do it, and I wish they could go do it on some island somewhere where they wouldn't bother the rest of us.
Who on the right smashes windows?
The Proud Boy people,
She's
right. I don't think they've smashed any window.
I mean, I'm sure they've smashed one,
but
that's
the windows of the building right over there. They did do that. The Capitol. I mean.
Oh, the Capitol.
Yeah. And they get into fights with each other. They fight the Antifa people, and it's all in California.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not like a ardent Proud Boy defender, but
right.
I will say, all of the videos I've seen, they're usually the ones attacked first.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's different.
I kind of agree with that. Yeah.
They have not been very active lately for a variety of reasons. They've all
a lot of them are feds.
A lot of them are feds. The Antifa people, though, I mean, again, there's no organization. Like, it was just designated a terrorist organization, but it is not an organization. It is a tactic. It is a behavior.
I disagree. That's actually not true.
You can't sign up to be part of Antifa.
Well, it's not a centralized organization. It's more like our cells. So a couple of years ago, 2020, 2021, there was this massive Antifa riot, effectively. I believe it was in San Francisco. And they recently actually just all got hit with massive jail time. And it was a collective group that was organizing on chat messages and like Discord channels and things like that. And they had actually planned specifically to attack like certain right-wingers and even just passersby. And so they were able to prove that there was this organized cell of Antifa people who were operating, I think they might have charged them with RICO, but it was a good, I think, like, sort of test case for how you can actually hold these groups accountable in terms of like their organizing with one another. Like, they don't just show up to a protest and like they randomly decide to get violent. Like, they do pre-plan these events with a group of people, and typically they're organized based on their location.
Yeah, I would just be very wary of charging whole groups of people. If you show up to a protest and you're part of the protest, but someone else at the protest turns violent, then you're going to be in trouble. I mean, isn't that
it would be if you're in
all over again?
Well, it would
most of the people there are not.
No, so it's like, if you're doing violence and you're a part of a gang, you're subject to like greater scrutiny, harsher penalties, and these types of things, and you can be like investigated as part of a gang, like, hey, we don't have any probable cause on you specifically, but we know that you're a member of this gang and we have probable cause on, other people in this gang. Therefore, we're going to investigate you because you're part of this gang, and there's, an assumption that you are therefore also going to be doing crime because you're part of this criminal gang.
It's not if you're there, it's if you were involved in the pre-planning, the organization of a violent protest.
Right. Well, if you have some email where you say, I'm going to show up and I plan to do violence.
Which is what they did in San Francisco, and because they had all planned it together, that's why they were able to basically charge them as a group.
In the Antifa events, or the events I've been to where there has been an Antifa presence, including, again, right outside this building during the summer of just the Black Lives Matter summer
of love,
when they would, go down the streets smashing. A lot of it did not seem particularly pre-planned to me, is what I would say.
Well, I'm sure they didn't say we're going to smash.
They, you know, it doesn't mean just because it's, you know, kind of chaotic doesn't mean that it's not pre-planned.
Smash the window of Starbucks on 17th and H, but certainly they plan to show up at the same place at the same time, and we're okay with using violence, right?
I think people who show up to protests are a specific kind of person.
Sure.
Kind of like a loser, loner types, or this is their social event, and they almost, it's like it's a concert for them, and they get carried away and they smash something or punch someone. And again, they should all be arrested when they do that. I just think I see a lot of sinister motivations being imputed. Like there's Cernovich keeps saying the billionaires are funding that. Like this is not massively funded at some elite level. It's a bunch of crazy lunatic.
Yeah, I mean, maybe is.
My view is not. I see no evidence of that.
When I think about the summer of 2020 and we call them the riot squad, the people who would go to all of the protests to report on.
Which, I mean, and this is true. This is definitely like, you know, this has been fairly well documented where like a lot of these people are professional protesters. And there are groups like that. They're like, oh yeah, if you want us to show up for your activism campaign, we're going to do it. We've got signs. There is a group of those people that are, you know, professional activists, professional protesters. Like that's a thing.
On them, they noticed very quickly that no matter where they were in the country, they saw the same group of people with the Black Bloc or Antifa groups all flying around with one another to agitate and commit violence.
It's like
it seems very unlikely to me that this is happening by accident.
It's like the groupies for a band. They follow the band all the way across the country. That's their.
Yeah. And usually there's like one person who's, you know, oh man, this guy made, you know, $1 million and doing whatever the fuck. And he's going to get the whole groupie gang together. He's buying the van and, you know, paying for the gas. And we're all going to tour the Grateful Dead together. I mean, that's not unheard of. All right. I want to do this one other one. This is the last free media one. Tylenol and autism link. And then, of course, the result of this. I don't know if they're going to mention the result of this, where it's like you've got pregnant women who are owning the chuds by chugging down Tylenol. Yeah, I mean, you know, pray for their kids.
Well, President Donald Trump.
I hope they switched it out and they're not actually taking Tylenol. I hope they were like smart enough to know you're really not supposed to do like any drugs or anything when you're pregnant unless it's like super insanely necessary, because anything can affect, you know, your baby, because it's such an insanely, you know, pivotal moment, and so much stuff's happening that anything gets thrown off. Yeah, like, I mean, Tylenol comes out and literally says, yeah, we really don't recommend this if you're pregnant, taking our stuff. We don't recommend it.
His long-awaited announcement about combating increased autism rates. Now, contrary to some speculation, neither he nor his health secretary, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., touted a link between autism and vaccines. Rather, the president urged pregnant women to limit their use of Tylenol. Here's what he said.
Tylenol during pregnancy can be associated with a very increased risk of autism. So taking Tylenol is not good. All right, I'll say it. It's not good. For this reason, they are strongly recommending that women limit Tylenol use during pregnancy unless medically necessary. That's, for instance, in cases of extremely high fever, that you feel you can't tough it out, you can't do it. I guess there's that.
Oh, funny announcement.
I mean, yeah, I mean, he should not be doing these medical things. Like, because he just, the way he talks is a little bit more off the cuff, and it's like super annoying because he will say this dumb shit. Now, everything that he said is like accurate. Like, yeah, you know, you can't. Again, Tylenol themselves literally says, we don't recommend taking any of our products when you're pregnant. They said that, and they've said that before. So not great. But, it's also something where it's like, there's you can still, they're not banning it. They're saying, hey, look, when it's super medically necessary, yeah, okay. But on balance, it's not nothing. It's not, going to have no effect on you.
I'll let you go first on this one.
Okay.
What do you think about that?
Well, so
You're anti-Tylenol.
I'm pretty anti-Tylenol. I don't take it because it's linked with liver issues when you take too much. So I stick to ibuprofen and aspirin. But
Agreed.
I'm more of an ibuprofen guy myself. Although I've been under the weather the last couple days.
It is actually, and it's also, I think it works better. I think ibuprofen's way better. It it deals with your inflammation a lot better. But same thing in terms of if we're talking specifically about pregnant women, which is, specifically what he was talking about, it's kind of, there's not really any medication that is recommended that pregnant women take willy-nilly whenever you want, go nuts. You're pregnant. There's literally a warning bottle on every single label, don't take it if pregnant. It's their standard text because anything can have an effect.
And my doctor, for some reason, said to try Tylenol instead.
I just feel like I destroy my liver enough with alcohol. I don't need to add Tylenol on top of that. It just seems like a compounding effect that's probably not great.
If you're drinking, which is always the case for me, you're not supposed to take Tylenol. I think you're supposed to take ibuprofen for hangovers.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm mixing, matching all sorts
True.
But I'm not a pregnant lady, so I can do whatever I want.
That is true. So I did some research as we learned.
You did your own research?
I did my own research.
Uh-oh.
I know, watch out. The crazy's about to come out.
Here we go.
But as we got reports that this announcement was coming, I thought, okay, well, let me see what's going on here because the mainstream media headlines were predictably apoplectic.
Yeah.
And there were quite a few high-profile studies suggesting that there was a link between Tylenol and increased autism rates. The one that I found most compelling was one from the Harvard School of Medicine where they had actually looked over all of the previous studies. I think there were 46 of them with approximately 100,000 participants and basically analyzed the results and all the studies and found that they did believe that there was some kind of link, although they weren't sure if it was causal or not. I've seen some MAHA doctors suggesting that when pregnant women get vaccines, that could be a driver of the fevers, which then causes them to take Tylenol, so it could still be vaccines.
It seems like those people peddling their vaccine explanation for everything.
It's always the vaccines. And look, I'm sympathetic to that idea, but I want to see the evidence. But yeah, I think it's reasonable to be cautious, and I think it's important to note too that they did not say never take Tylenol or your baby's going to be autistic.
Right. That's
it
what
was in limited circumstances, the lowest effective dose for the most limited amount of time.
Anyway.
Right. They're just saying to exercise more caution. Doctors need to think deeply about
caution, but that's what
you throw caution to the wind.
Are always exercising caution.
But now the libs, Robbie, on TikTok, they're popping Tylenol like it's candy.
Like it's ivermectin for conservatives during the height of the
yes.
Shocking.
There's pregnant women literally dumping Tylenol in their mouth, and I'm like, okay, so now we're giving our babies autism to own Trump. Like what? None of this makes sense.
You want to give your baby autism so they can be the next inventor of Tesla or something.
That's not how it works.
People are doing a lot of terrific things.
Not really how it works.
Society.
Only the high-functioning ones.
That were also super intelligent.
My wariness about the association, yes, there's studies that show maybe an association, although I was reading Emily Oster, who's a thinker I tend to like. She was saying that she was not convinced by it because the study finding but the siblings of the kids for which there was seemed to be a link, the siblings also should have had it and they didn't have a link. My suspicion, knowing absolutely nothing, is that there's it could be a million different things. Could be the vaccines. Could be the Tylenol. Could be
it's probably
all
multiple.
Slight little things that all maybe nudge you.
Right.
Maybe only if you have some kind of genetic predisposition anyway. So I don't know that vast behavior should necessarily be changed for this. But to your point, They're always, I mean, the government says that pregnant women shouldn't drink any alcohol.
They shouldn't have ibuprofen.
We know that, a glass of wine is not going to kill the baby if it's like, nobody should drink in excess. They don't think anyone should drink ever. They don't think anyone should do anything fun, period.
Yeah. They also tell you not to eat lunch meat because you get listeria.
Pregnant women or all of us?
Pregnant women, and because...
you shouldn't have sushi, fish, blah, 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 blah. I mean, it's literally like, okay, how crazy do you want to be about this? But also, it is kind of your baby. So, I mean...
The risk is the same of getting listeria, but if you do get it, obviously the baby is at greater risk than me, an adult.
And did you see that
listeria.
tweet from Tylenol from there's a
2017? It was like, we never recommend pregnant women to take our medicine.
So then I looked at Tylenol as a company stopped tweeting around 2020, 2021. So I don't know what maybe they're on Blue Sky now, just wishing death on MAGA. But,
the reactions were so overblown, and then I was arguing with people earlier this week. They were like, I don't trust Trump and RFK for medical advice. And it's like, okay, well, Marty McCary and Jay Bhattacharya and Dr. Oz are standing up there telling you that they agree with the conclusions. So, can we all relax a little bit?
Yeah, it's probably everyone. No. If everyone, even not just pregnant women, getting the warning, maybe take a little less painkillers than you're taking now is probably just good population level advice.
Good advice.
I'm sure it's good advice for me because, again, I take this stuff like it's candy. But if you're in pain, you should take it, even if you're a pregnant woman, which is what Trump said. If that's the best, that's the most effective.
Is Robbie Suave okay?
Fever, the fever could harm the baby. It's probably okay to have some Tylenol.
Yeah.
But we should not be taking it every time we have a sore knee.
Yeah.
But where we really disagree, though, is we might want our autistic children to build tech companies, and they're going to start.
I know it sounds nice when you think about.
No, it's just. I mean, I understand why you're saying that, but it's just not the case. Yeah, the autistic people are just able to be productive now. It's not. Yeah. They're able to be productive because of the society that we've built up. It actually is not like, oh man, autism gives you superpowers. It's like, no. If you're intelligent without autism, you can do more than intelligent with autism.
The Lego, they're going to come out of the womb wanting to do Lego constructions, things like that.
It sounds nice when you're talking about obviously the high functioning, but yeah, I did see a lot of moms who are either in the MAHA movement or are actually liberals or on the left who are not part of it and were kind of skeptical of it, who have kids with really severe autism, nonverbal.
There's really severe
autism. And they were really grateful that
And this is kind of the thing where it's like, that's like, how can we put it? Real autism. That's before the DSM stuff was like, all right, we're going to make this a spectrum. We're going to make it a whole thing. We're going to make it, it's just like a personality trait now. As opposed to like a diagnosable disorder that's like really actually significant. It's the same thing with like ADHD, where it was like, all right, you've broadened out the definition so much that people that actually need this diagnosis are getting lumped in with all these other people that are just like, they just don't like school, that it's just not really for them, they're not ADHD, they should just be doing farm work, they should be doing other kinds of jobs, they should not be forced to be sitting in school for 8 hours a day when they're 6.
The administration is actually trying to figure out what the links are.
Yeah, and in those cases, obviously, I understand that those parents want questions answered, want to know how this could have been prevented, the severe level. On the kind of the lighter, the less crippling autism diagnoses, I remain skeptical that it has gotten more common. I think it's being more easily diagnosed.
It has. The spectrum has been way broadened out, which is going to include more people, and then also, it's going to be over-diagnosed. The exact same thing happened with ADHD.
Has been wide. When you look at
I think the numbers are a little bit too. They've jumped a little too much for me to buy just that as the explanation. I think that's
no.
of it, but also there's probably some other causal factor.
I think there probably has been an increase, but yeah, the jump is not. I would say the fact that the increase is, that big means that that's why it's happened. Because of the fact that you've got, you're broadening it out, and because you're broadening it out, you're catching more people, and then also you're then, over-diagnosing people because the definition is so broad that it's even going to catch a bunch of people that don't have it, that just so happen to, have personality traits that kind of line up with it. Like they have nothing to do with, that kind of neurodivergence or like brain disorder, however you want to describe it. They've got nothing to do with it. They just, have a personality that kind of mimics it.
Or being like too fastidious, or being too not wanting to touch things,
or being anxious in social situations, like welcome to the frickin' club.
Yeah. Welcome to life in the 21st century.
Yes.
Maybe your circumstances weren't so anxiety-driven in previous centuries.
Okay, so one of the other things
because you just died of typhoid or whatever.
This is true. One of the other things they found that was really interesting is that there's some receptor in the brain where, like, if they have like low function of it, that can be a predictor of or a symptom of autism. And they found this drug that can be used off-label for helping to increase blood flow, I believe, to that part of the brain, which they think can help treat some of the symptoms of autism, which was, I think, a really huge breakthrough that a lot of people are sort of brushing aside because everybody wants to talk about Tylenol.
And everyone wants to talk about Tylenol except RFK Jr., who you could tell was back behind Trump, like, where's the vaccines? Vaccines! And it was so mad that they've
1933, Berlin is hit hard by the global Great Depression. With 30% of the German working-age population unemployed, soup kitchen lines like this one are everywhere. Fast forward to Berlin in 1939, it's Hitler's birthday. Unemployment is close to 0%, the soup kitchens are gone, and instead we see Hitler's new army with thousands of state-of-the-art tanks, howitzers, half-tracks, and hundreds of modern fighters and bombers. This army that would soon humiliate the Belgian, Dutch, Nordic, Polish, British and French forces had been built up from virtually nothing in 6 years, despite Germany's limited access to crucial raw materials such as iron ore, rubber and oil.
Damn.
This seemingly impossible transformation, this economic miracle that fueled such devastation was not accidental. It was meticulously engineered by one man, Hjalmar Schacht. A man who would earn the nickname the Dark Wizard of international finance due to his highly unorthodox tricks that allowed Nazi Germany to seemingly defy economic growth.
That's a pretty cool title. I mean, horrible association, but that's a pretty cool title.
Gravity.
The Dark Wizard.
How did he do it? And what can we learn from the Nazi economic miracle today? In this video, I'll tell you not just what tricks Schacht used to rebuild the German economy, but also how this fundamentally reshaped global power and why its economic situation pushed Germany to war. Finally, I'll tell the story of how Hjalmar Schacht, who started out as a center-left Democrat, ended up working for the Nazis, and why despite his economic miracle, he ultimately ended up in a concentration camp. This is the economic miracle that killed millions. To truly understand the Nazi economic miracle, we need to understand what came before it. Imperial Germany, the Great War, and the Weimar Republic. This story starts in the early 20th century. Empire is still the dominant global superpower, but it increasingly found itself challenged by a new European powerhouse, Imperial Germany.
This is obviously like a way bigger Germany. It's interesting. It's interesting to look back at these borders.
Which was formed in 1871. Just 6 years.
Oh, this is like Prussia. No. Yeah, Imperial Germany. It's Prussia. That's what I was like. I was like, what? Wait a minute. Hang on.
Later, Hjalmar Schacht, son of a German merchant and Danish baroness, was born in the North German state Schleswig-Holstein.
Again, I mean, it's not German. It's not Germany at this point. It's Prussia. Prusia. Usually I see it with two S's, but yeah, it's Prussia now. It's not Germany.
An intelligent and a rather ambitious man, he had a successful academic career, obtaining a PhD in economics from Kiel University. After that, he quickly moved up the ranks of Germany's second largest bank.
If we're gonna have a whole bunch of noise
to eventually
soon,
its vice
I
director.
might stop.
When the First World War started, Schacht, who was a nationalist, briefly served as a financial consultant to the German occupational forces in Belgium. In early 1918, it looked like Germany could still win. However, the German war economy had a fatal weakness, a lack of natural resources necessary for war, such as oil, rubber, and iron ores.
Iron.
Throughout the war...
Iron. It's iron, baby. Iron.
Allied naval blockade seriously hurt the German war effort. The real problem, however, came when a series of bad harvests caused food shortages that could not be remedied by imports due to the Allied blockade.
Yikes.
As a consequence, the German people rebelled in 1918, overthrowing the German Kaiser.
Damn.
This was the end of Imperial Germany. The new German Republic came to be known as the Weimar Republic, named after the city where its constitution was drafted. For Schacht, the end of the war meant a return to his civilian career as a German banker. Germany, now being a democracy, enabled Schacht to also dip his toes into politics, as he became a founding member of the center-left Liberal Party, the German Democratic Party. This party was later merged into the centrist German People's Party, which would eventually enlist Schacht to fight hyperinflation. Indeed, today, most people know the Weimar Republic from the famous Weimar hyperinflation of 1923, during which German money essentially became worthless due to excessive money creation by the state. What is perhaps...
Yeah. Doesn't remind you of anything, does it?
Less well known, though, is that the German central bank, the Reichsbank, did not allow this to happen because they did not understand basic economics. The real reason the Weimar government would turn to the printing press is that it was facing two problems that were so big that they would ruin the German economy anyway. The first was a so-called international balance of payments crisis, where the central bank runs out of foreign exchange reserves, such as gold or widely accepted currencies like the dollar or pound. In the early 1920s, the Reichsbank's reserve dynamics worked as follows. First, the Reichsbank obtained foreign currency if Germany exported to other countries. Second, it gave foreign currency to importers on request. Finally, it would earn foreign currency on foreign investments and pay foreign currency to foreign investors or lenders. Running out of reserves would be a death sentence for the German economy, because then the Reichsbank would no longer help factories to import raw materials to keep its industries running. In the early 1920s, the Treaty of Versailles, which Weimar Germany had signed to end the war, created a severe balance of payment crisis in three ways. First, the treaty reduced export earnings as the British seized the German merchant fleet and French and Belgian troops occupied Germany's industrial heartland, the Ruhrgebiet, where German workers stopped working in protest. Second, the Versailles Treaty increased Germany's need to import, as Germany lost resource-rich territories. Finally, worst of all, the treaty stipulated that Germany had to pay reparations.
Oh yeah, that's the big one that everybody remembers.
In foreign currency to compensate for
Oh damn it, foreign currency, I didn't know that.
Damages in allied nations. These reparations were worth about 2.5% of German GDP, quickly depleting the reserves of the Reichsbank. Conventional economics suggests that Germany could solve this problem in three ways. The first is that it could theoretically export much more to earn reserves. However, in practice, this is a slow process because building a competitive export industry takes decades.
Right, yeah, for sure.
Second, it could, in theory, default on its reparation payments. But in practice, with Allied armies at its doorsteps and the German army in a sorry state, this was no option either. Therefore, there was just one practical option left: radically cut imports. This, however, is easier said than done because most imports are done by private citizens and firms, not the government. On top of that, cutting imports would be a disaster for Germany's economy and exporters, which relied on crucial raw materials like iron ore, petroleum, rubber, and other metals. To make matters worse, the Weimar government had to deal with a second crisis: a massive war debt owed to the German people.
Oh, okay. I was wondering why they were talking about the reparations stuff. So he separated out the reparations from the actual debt that it created, building all their stuff to do to fund the war initially, because they still have to pay that back. That's true.
You see, while France had largely financed the war through increased taxes, the German Kaiser had done so by borrowing a lot from his citizens. The Weimar Republic
Borrowing a lot from his citizens? Is that like, it's not bonds, or is it? Or is he basically saying like he taxed you and then gave you like an IOU? No. He said borrowed it from the citizens. Is that, I'm assuming that means buying bonds.
Had gotten rid of the Kaiser, but not of his gigantic war debt. Conventional economics now tells us that the Weimar government had two options to deal with this debt. The first was extreme austerity, cutting back on government spending or raising taxes by a lot. The second option was defaulting on all of its debts and payment obligations. So the Weimar government turned to the printing press not because it did not understand basic economics, but rather because it has no good alternative option. As anyone with a basic education in economics will tell you, rapidly creating money while not creating, and this is crucial, a more productive economy at the same time will lead to a rapid decline in the value of money. This is inflation. However, newly printed money did help the Weimar government survive. Using newly created money to buy gold on international markets allowed it to continue to pay reparations. Of course, every time it did this, the value of the German currency relative to gold would fall, increasing the cost of imports. Similarly, every time the Weimar government printed money to pay German workers who were not making products, this would cause prices for basic goods to rapidly increase. As a consequence, inflation got higher and higher until it was so high that it was considered hyperinflation. Hyperinflation made doing business in Germany very difficult indeed. But it did keep unemployment relatively low as there was so much money.
Damn, okay. This is the 20s though.
Sloshing around the economy. It also solved Germany's second economic problem, as in just a few years its massive war debt was inflated away. However, at the same time, German savings and pensions were inflated away as well. Predictably, Germans were not happy. Therefore, in 1923, they voted in a new government.
So what do you think? They were just like, hey, we can't pay it? That would suck, but I'm kind of like, I don't know. I think you could have maybe made the thing there where it's like, look, here are our options. We can do the inflation stuff. We can print more money. We can pay back this debt, but your money's going to be worthless, and your savings is going to be worthless, and all this other stuff's going to be worthless. So hey, how about we just pay you back like way down the line, the debt stuff, maybe.
Led by the German People Party, which brought in none other than Hjalmar Schacht to fix the German economy. So, how did he do it? How did Schacht stop German hyperinflation? First, Schacht prepared for a new currency to be introduced. This would get rid of a lot of zeros. However, it did not change the underlying economic situation. Since hyperinflation had already inflated away the local debt, Schacht only had to solve Germany's balance of payments crisis, which was mainly caused by reparations. As a central banker, he could, of course, not fix this by himself. So with his allies in government, he negotiated the so-called Dawes Plan, which...
Oh, really? Okay. First put Germany on feet, then collect. This Dawes Plan.
Which reduced reparation payments until Germany's economy would recover. Without high debt and without the immediate threat of reparations, there was no more reason to print money. Inflation thus rapidly fell, and as the economy stabilized, Germany became a very attractive country to invest in, especially for foreign investors.
Yeah.
The investment boom that followed led to the so-called golden age of Weimar.
Very reasonable. Because, I mean, again, yeah, it's like, hey, you had a huge, giant dip. People want to buy the dip. You know, everything's cheap to, you know, get in there. They're willing to work for less, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Very reasonable that it would be very, you know, attractive to investors.
In which Germany's economy thrived. However, below the surface, trouble was brewing. As Germany's economy recovered, its reparation payments increased. Luckily, due to the fact that foreign investments were bringing in so many new reserves and that exports were booming, thanks to a booming global economy, the German balance of payments was doing just fine in the 1920s. Sadly, in 1929, when the US stock market collapsed, Germany was especially vulnerable for two reasons. First, Wall Street loans to Germany came to an abrupt end. Second, German exports also collapsed as the US and UK turned to protectionism to protect local jobs. Therefore, Weimar Germany was once again facing a massive balance of payments crisis. But with the devastating consequences of hyperinflation still fresh in German memories, printing money was now not an option. Due to rising protectionism, increasing exports was also not an option. So if the government wanted to avoid cutting crucial imports, which would after all devastate German industry, Schacht had to get a good deal on reparations. Sadly, he failed to get that deal. Therefore, in 1930, Hjalmar Schacht resigned as president of the Reichsbank. With reparations draining Reichsbank reserves, the next Weimar government now only had one option left: crashing the economy. Wait a minute, hold on. This sounds strange, doesn't it? Why would a government deliberately crash its own economy?
Yeah, why would it? That does sound crazy. Does it even have the ability to crash its own? I mean, I guess it does, but I don't know if it's like, you know, it's not like hitting the abort button.
Well, it's actually quite simple. The government does not directly control imports, but it can make people so poor that they cannot import much anymore. After all, the biggest importers are typically people and companies. A liberal government cannot control them directly. However, it can make them poorer by crashing the economy through harsh austerity, raising taxes and cutting spending. The poorer the people, the less they import, the more reserves are available to the central bank to pay, in this case, reparations and debts to Wall Street, London, Amsterdam and Zurich. Of course, the downside of an engineered depression is not inflation, but rather massive unemployment and poverty. This is why lines for soup kitchens became such a common sight in Berlin.
Interesting.
Of course, if you impoverish voters, they won't keep voting for you. Instead, they will go to parties that promise radical change, such as Germany's Communist Party on the far left and the Nazi Party on the far right. One of those radicalized people was Hjalmar Schacht, who in 1931 appeared alongside Hitler at a far-right rally to criticize the Weimar government for their spineless reparation policies. Of course, the Weimar government realized that sky-high unemployment was not politically sustainable. Therefore, it kept trying to solve the balance of payments crisis through negotiation with the Allies. And believe it or not, in 1932, it actually succeeded, negotiating a 90% reduction of its reparation debt at the Lausanne Conference.
Damn.
Meanwhile, to reboot its economy, the Weimar government made plans to soon start its first work creation program to get the nation working again, and slowly but surely this seemed to be working. Soup kitchen lines got shorter and shorter, and in 1932 the Economist's Berlin correspondent wrote that for the first time for 3 or 4 years the German bourgeoisie could see a glimmer of economic light. Yet it was too little too late. In 1932 the Nazis became Germany's biggest political party, and after a lot of political maneuvering they transformed Germany's democracy into a dictatorship. Hitler was the new Führer of Germany, and he brought in none other than Hjalmar Schacht to once again fix Chapter 2, 1933 to 1936. Schacht's economic
cut off a little bit there, but all right.
miracle. As the new Reichsbank president and economy minister for the Nazis, Hjalmar Schacht faced three massive challenges. The first was that he needed to get Germans working again. The second was that Hitler wanted a massive army. And the third was that Germany still faced the same massive balance of payments problem that twice crashed the Weimar economy. The Reichsbank was bleeding 400 million marks in foreign exchange reserves every year because Germans were importing 4.2 billion Reichsmarks of goods and services, and while reparations were no more, Germany still had to pay 1 billion each year to service its debts to private investors in Wall Street, London, Amsterdam and Zurich. Meanwhile, Germany's exports only brought in 4.8 billion Reichsmarks worth of foreign exchange.
And there's no foreign investment?
The balance of payments crisis became worse if Schacht delivered on the first and second goals. After all, employed Germans import more than unemployed ones, and creating a massive army from scratch meant massively increasing natural resource imports.
Gotcha.
Yet, as you can see here, in the streets of Berlin in 1939, Schacht got it done. The soup kitchens were gone, almost all Germans were working, its economy was stronger than ever, and Hitler was parading around his brand new army. This army had thousands of modern tanks, built with tons of steel, smelted from tons of imported iron ore. This army had thousands of trucks and half-tracks driving on tires that were made from imported rubber. This army had thousands of bombers and fighters whose frames were made from imported aluminum. Finally, all of these mechanized machines were moving on billions and billions of imported gallons of fuel. On its own, Nazi Germany's economic recovery was impressive, but not a miracle. The US performed about equally well. On its own, Germany's rearmament was impressive, but not a miracle. Germany's military production would eventually be eclipsed by its adversaries. But
well, of
given
course.
that, unlike its adversaries, Germany had very few natural resources and a history of massive balance of payments crisis. I think it's fair to call Schacht's combined achievement of his three objectives an economic miracle. He got a rapid economic recovery, a massive army buildup, and no inflation or balance of payments crisis. So, what was his secret? To get it done, Schacht used 8 highly unconventional economic tools that would earn him the nickname the Dark Wizard of International Finance.
I mean, that's pretty cool.
First, Schacht used a classic tool to get German workers working again. Famously, US President Franklin D. Roosevelt, FDR, got the US out of the Depression through his massive New Deal spending package, letting the government borrow to fund massive public works. In Nazi Germany, Schacht had a similar plan called the Neue Plan, which is German for new plan. From the Weimar hyperinflation experience, we have seen that government money printing can be an extremely destructive force. However, all that money sloshing around meant that German unemployment was at its lowest during hyperinflation. Close to zero even. More money in the economy equals more spending. More spending creates more job opportunities, which means more people that are producing stuff. Monetary theory teaches us that if the supply of money increases at the same rate as production, there will actually be no inflation. Of course, in practice, it is incredibly difficult to get this fine balance right. However, in 1933, the German economy was clearly underutilized. Unemployment was sky high. Factories were running at 50% capacity. So when Schacht got into office, the solution was a no-brainer. Just let the government borrow from its own citizens and spend more to activate all of these unused idle resources. On the surface, the Neue Plan was very similar to Roosevelt's New Deal. The Nazis just invested a bunch of borrowed money in autobahns and other public works. That's what they wanted the world to believe, at least. In reality, this was only the case in 1933. After that, local government and central government civilian spending were largely replaced by a massive increase in military spending. This was very risky because it was forbidden by the Versailles Treaty. The Nazis genuinely feared an Allied invasion if they found out about rearmament too early.
That's cool.
They enlisted Schacht to hide the surge in military spending. To do so, he set up a shell company called
I mean, like, this is actually so interesting. This is actually super interesting. the fact that you have this like economic history is just like totally, you don't even see it. This is actually super interesting.
Metallurgische Forschungsgesellschaft, which translates to Metallurgic Research Company. This shell company would place massive military orders with German industries, but crucially, it would not pay for this with money. Instead, it would give them a debt certificate known as the MIFO bill. However, behind the scenes, Schacht guaranteed these bills could always be sold to the Reichsbank. Thus, essentially, the government was borrowing massively. But on paper, it was all done by a private German company. With his Neue Plan, Schacht had rebooted the German economy in the same way that
Fuck, this is so cool. This, I mean, like, this is the kind of stuff that, like, you would see this in, like, you know, Game of Thrones. You see this in, like, The Expanse. It'd be something like this. Where like, oh my god, it's like, how do you build, like, your own big, crazy army of, like, you know, new ships and all this kind of stuff. And it's, like, this type of stuff. And I was like, oh, this is actually awesome. This is actually fantastic. This is so cool. Holy shit.
Done it in the US through massive government spending.
Obviously, I would love it if this was something other than, like, the Nazis. And I could be a little bit more effusive in my praise, like, oh my god, it's so smart. It's a little shitty about, like, you know, 1930, 40 Germany doing it, but yeah, super interesting still. Holy crap.
However, as we've seen, that was just on the surface. There were two crucial differences. The first was that Schacht spent most of his new money on the military rather than on public works. And the second was that he hid most of this spending through a shell company. So Schacht's first tool was basically hidden deficit spending. But as the German government spent more and more money on rearming itself, unemployment got lower and lower. This meant that after a few years, German workers could increasingly ask for higher wages, causing inflation. At least if it wasn't for Schacht's next unorthodox tool, wage controls. Wage controls essentially mean that the state intervened in the labor market to prevent wages from rising too much. Despite claiming to work in the interest of the German workers, when the Nazis came to power, they quickly outlawed labor unions and replaced them with their own general labor union, the German Labor Front. But rather than advocating for pay rises, the German Labor Front worked hard to prevent wage rises. Therefore, while the German economy grew a lot on paper, most Germans did not profit from Schacht's economic miracle, as their wages remained relatively stagnant.
I mean,
but even with wages relatively stagnant,
I mean, not really. I mean, they did go up. They just didn't go up at the same rate that GDP did.
Nazi Germany's fully employed workforce still had a lot more money to spend. Therefore, Schacht's wage controls were not enough to fully control inflation. And this is where Schacht's third tool came in, price controls. Price controls are essentially the government saying that prices in certain categories cannot rise by too much. However, because there are tens of thousands of prices in the economy, Schacht's new office of price formation introduced price controls gradually. Whenever there were big price hikes in important categories such as textiles, he would introduce price controls there. Then, if there were new price spikes in other categories, such as seafood, the Nazis would introduce more.
Okay.
So, Schacht got unemployment down to almost zero without causing inflation by combining big government spending and the military with wage and price controls. Of course, controlling inflation like this does not solve the fundamental problem of overheating your economy. It just shifts the problem elsewhere. So instead of inflation, ordinary Germans simply got stagnant wages due to wage controls.
Okay. I mean, like, again, yeah, I want to see how this, like, you know, works out. Because obviously, like, the hyperinflation stuff, okay, your debt, you know, that's going to bum around with, like, you know, you're going to get, you know, revolutions, or you're going to get, you know, voted out, stuff like that. For sure. So stagnant wages, I mean, again, like, they did go up. And again, the people in 1933, they're remembering, these are definitely the same people that 10 years, not even 10 years later, are, you know, employed, and they've got a little bit more money. They've got, you know, comparatively way more money, because, like, they were, you know, a lot of these people were also you know, like out of work, straight up, like they were poor. They're, you know, hand them out. They're getting soup lines. They got no money whatsoever. So they're like, you know what? This is still actually an improvement. So that's something. So, I mean, you don't necessarily see them being like, you know, totally super unpopular. That's probably not what's going to happen. I wonder what it's going to be. Is it going to be like they can't import stuff anymore? That'd be my, I mean...
And shortages in several sectors, such as textiles, due to price controls. After all, prices go up in response to demand being greater than supply. Schacht essentially outlawed price increases, but since higher prices reduced demand, this meant that inflation was simply replaced by shortages.
Okay.
But if there are shortages and prices don't work anymore, then how did strategic industries get resources?
Right.
Did they just have to get lucky? For strategic sectors like steel and coal, Schacht's answer came in the form of his fourth unorthodox economic tool, quotas. This meant that his bureaucrats increasingly determined which sector got important resources, like steel and coal, and which did not. Unless, of course, Germans imported goods, which they now again had the money to do so. This leads us back to Germany's ever-returning economic problem, a terrible balance of payment situation. Indeed, in 1933, despite the Weimar government cancellation of reparations, Schacht was still losing 400 million Reichsmarks worth in foreign currency exchange each year, mostly due to debt repayments. Therefore, Schacht's obvious first solution was to just get rid of Germany's remaining debts, most of which were owed to the US, UK, Netherlands and Switzerland. This is where Schacht would first show his ruthless dark side. In 1934, he announced that Germany would simply default on these debts. Of course, by doing that, he ensured that nobody would ever lend money to the Nazis again.
Right.
However, given that it was still the Great Depression,
and I mean, yeah, it doesn't look like, I mean, just from the numbers, they didn't show all three of the numbers, but it looked like the foreign investment was like zero anyway.
Overseas lending anyway. At least, that was the gamble. This backfired. By defaulting on all Germany's debts, Schacht had overplayed his hand. Not surprisingly, the affected nations responded to this by sanctioning Germany, refusing to buy German exports. So to avoid a balance of payments crisis, Schacht backtracked, at least partially, by cutting deals with the Netherlands, Switzerland and the UK to keep paying these debts in exchange for favorable trade deals. However, crucially, Schacht did not cut a deal with the US. This was the cost of US protectionism at the time. You see, through sky-high tariffs, the US had already destroyed German exports to the US.
Right,
Therefore, the US had little leverage over Germany. So Schacht's fifth unorthodox tool was a selective debt default. Because the US was Germany's largest creditor, this actually bought him some time. But it did not solve his balance of payments crisis, as German imports soared to new highs due to Germany's booming economy. This is why Schacht needed a sixth tool: capital controls. Practically, capital controls meant that German importers could no longer just access foreign exchange reserves to buy products abroad. Instead, they had to go through Schacht's ever-extending bureaucracy, filling in forms, telling the Reichsbank exactly why they needed foreign exchange. However, even after completely controlling imports, Schacht still had not solved Germany's balance of payments problem for two reasons. The first was that thanks to American and British currency devaluations, German exporters were suddenly no longer competitive. The obvious solution to this problem was to devalue the Reichsmark as well. But because the Nazis wanted to avoid inflation at all costs, this option was out of the question. Therefore, Schacht needed yet another unorthodox trick, which was simply subsidizing exporters. Together with improving global markets throughout the 1930s, this did actually stabilize German exports. But of course, it was rather expensive for the German government.
Interesting.
The
Okay, that makes
second
sense.
threat to Schacht's meticulously controlled balance of payment was the Nazis' brutal treatment of the Jews. While Nazis like Heinrich Himmler were encouraging Jews to emigrate through violence and intimidation, Schacht saw this as a massive problem. Schacht's economic logic was brutally simple. German Jews had an estimated wealth of 8 billion Reichsmarks. The Reichsbank had 100 million worth of foreign exchange reserves. If all Jews...
Wait, how much was this again? Let me check. 8 billion. Now, let's think. So they're losing 400 million a year. I don't know if that's still the same. It's probably relatively close to it. They're doing I think it was something like 4.2 billion. Yeah, I think it was like 4.2 billion in imports. So, and they're also gonna have some exports. It's gonna be that stuff. So, like, again, even if you grabbed all of this capital, 8 billion in capital, you're still only gonna be able to like have it fund your economy for what, 10 years, roughly. I mean, it depends on how expensive it is to do the export subsidies and these types of things. But it's not gonna be forever. And obviously you can't hit it twice. So that's an issue. And it's the same thing with like this is why wealth taxes are not really gonna work in the long term.
The Reichsbank had 100 million worth of foreign exchange reserves.
Yeah.
If all Jews did actually emigrate due to Himmler's bullying and convert their assets to foreign currency, the Reichsbank would run out of reserves quickly. This brings us to Schacht's final unorthodox economic tool: personal capital controls, allowing people that wanted to go abroad to only take about 50,000 Reichsmarks in assets with them. The ultimate consequence of Schacht's brutal economic logic was that many Jews stayed behind in a country that would go on to commit genocide on them. So much like how he solved inflation, Schacht's solution to Germany's recurring balance of payments crises was a massive reduction of German freedom, along with deciding what wages could be paid, what prices could be set, and who could get critical resources.
This does make sense, because you do always ask yourselves, like, why would you stay if you're Jewish in Germany, Nazi Germany? Why would you stay? And it's like, okay, well, you can't bring any of your money with you. And I guess most people nowadays are thinking like, well, that seems like obvious. Like, of course you're not going to be able to, bring anything with you. Yeah, but it's like, if you have a whole bunch that you otherwise could bring with you, you'd want to try to do it. Which is why I guess a lot of people that left are probably the people that were like, already poor, or just like, we'll take it. We'll, which is like, it's crazy. Like, a lot of people are not willing to do that. If you've got, millions, billions of dollars in the bank, you're not willing to just like, let it, go. You're trying to keep it as much as you can.
Not his ever-expanding bureaucracy now decided what could be imported as well. Now, it's important to stress that this was not really in Schacht's nature. After all, just decades ago he had co-founded a liberal party. Therefore, he likely viewed these tools as a necessary evil, given Germany's extreme reliance on foreign natural resources. To see why, let's look at Schacht's first year. In 1934, when so many Germans were out of a job, Schacht could easily expand spending on both the military and civilian sectors without causing inflation or a balance of payments crisis. However, once the German economy was fully activated, money was no longer the problem. At this point, resources like steel, labor, and foreign exchange reserves were the real limit on Germany's military expansion. Therefore, from 1935 onwards, Schacht started using his bureaucratic machine in a more extreme way to increasingly squeeze the civilian sector in favor of military production. For example, from this point onwards, Schacht started to squeeze the textile sector by limiting cotton, wool, and leather imports to save foreign currency. Of course, this meant less clothing could be made in Germany. And to prevent clothing from becoming too expensive, Schacht rapidly enforced price controls on them, leading to shortages. Not surprisingly, the Nazi economic miracle only lasted for about 1 year for the German textiles industry. Another example is the fate of the German construction sector, which was a major user of steel. To make more steel available for the military, Schacht squeezed civilian construction by reducing local government budgets, who built a lot of houses, by limiting construction steel quotas, and making it much more difficult for banks to provide mortgages. This meant much more steel was now available for the military. But it also made Germany's massive housing shortage much worse. So Schacht's military buildup seemed like a miracle because using regular economic tools There was no way that he could have done it. Instead, he had to use 8 highly unorthodox tools. Germany's economic miracle was powered by massive government spending on the military, and meanwhile scarce resources were meticulously controlled by Schacht's ever-expanding bureaucracy, controlling domestic and international quantities and prices. But hey, wait a minute, massive government control? That sounds a lot like communism, doesn't it?
Doesn't it?
But didn't the Nazis hate communists?
Didn't they?
Were they secretly a bunch of communists?
Right?
No, not quite. After all, unlike in the Soviet Union, Germany's business elites kept their ownership over the means of production. In fact, thanks to massive government spending, they made more money than ever. Yet, for Germany's business elite, this did come at the cost of freedom. Schacht and the Nazis radically increased their control over German businesses by forcing them to join Nazi-controlled business associations. Business tycoons who dared to defy the Nazi state faced severe consequences. For example, legendary aircraft maker Hugo Junkers lost his business after declining to help the Nazis. And even tycoons who initially supported the Nazis were not safe. Steel baron Fritz Thyssen was an early Nazi backer, and yet he still ended up in a concentration camp. And believe it or not, this would eventually happen to Schacht as well. Which leads us to the final chapter in our story, which is the fall of Schacht. Starting in 1935, 2 things happened that would lead to Hjalmar Schacht's fall from grace. The first was in 1935 when the Nazis announced to the world that they were rearming, officially breaking the Treaty of Versailles. And while Schacht's MIFO bills continued to be issued, this did mean that in principle Schacht and his secretive financial trick was no longer needed. More crucially, the announcement meant that Germany's adversaries accelerated their own rearmament. And, as we have seen, the British Empire, Soviet Union, and especially the US had far more people.
Damn, look at how big the British Empire is. Holy, look how big that is. Look at all of that. Look at all of that territory. God, that's huge. Now, obviously, this map is very weird looking. I don't think, like, I mean, India's way bigger than that. Like, it's, yeah, I think this projection is very weird looking. It's making some of these things look way bigger, but yeah.
Natural resources and arable land than Germany. These powers would therefore inevitably outproduce the German war economy if given enough time. Therefore, if a massive war between Germany and these powers was inevitable, the cold economic logic is that in 1936, Germany only had a few years left in which it would have the upper hand when it comes to the war economy. If it wanted to fight the US and British Empire in the long term, it would need resources and land that were only available in the East. Lebensraum. This gets us to the big difference between Hitler and Schacht. Both men felt that manipulating the German economy to rearm was a necessary evil. However, while Schacht only wanted to restore Germany to its pre-war glory, Hitler believed that a total war against America was inevitable because he viewed its leader as a puppet of a global Jewish conspiracy against Germany. Therefore, while for Schacht it was time to ease economic manipulation and massive spending in the late 1930s, from Hitler's point of view, Germany's war economy was just getting started. This leads us to the second event that spelled the end for Schacht. Hitler's announcement of a Soviet-style 4-year plan in 1936. This plan had 2 goals. Number 1, make Germany's army as strong as needed for total war, and number 2, make Germany self-sufficient, such that its war could not be stopped by an Allied blockade as it had in the First World War. The 4-year plan directly undermined Schacht's authority as economy minister by giving the prominent Nazi Hermann Göring the role of Reich plenipotentiary, who was placed above the economy, defense, and agricultural ministers. In his new role, Göring immediately got to work pushing the German war economy harder and harder using the very tools that Schacht had introduced. Feeling that ever more increased spending would overheat the German economy, Schacht went to Hitler to voice his concerns. However, this was futile. After all, Hitler believed rivalry with the US was inescapable. Therefore, Germany needed to prepare to invade the Soviet Union to secure land and crucial resources. And for this, more spending was needed, not less. If Schacht was not willing to do it, Göring would. Essentially made powerless by Göring. Schacht therefore resigned as economy minister in 1937. Yet, he remained a Reichsbank president for the Nazis, and in this role, he remained committed to easing Germany's balance of payments problem. In fact, Schacht still had 2 tricks left up his sleeve. First, as Germany became stronger, he increasingly started bullying smaller Eastern European nations like oil-rich Romania for cheaper oil. And second, he oversaw the takeover of Austrian foreign exchange reserves during the 1938 Anschluss, which, along with the capture of Austrian natural resources like iron ore, helped Germany sustain its massive rearmament program for just a little bit longer. This plunder of foreign resources, along with ever-increasing government control over the economy, was the template the Nazis would follow for the remainder of the war. But it would be without Schacht, who was relieved by Hitler from his presidency of the Reichsbank early 1939, clearing the way for ever more military spending.
I was going to say,
To prevent
damn.
inflation, this was then followed by ever more extensive price and import controls. So, this impressive parade to celebrate Hitler's birthday in 1939, it was largely a result of Schacht's economic tricks. But Schacht himself is no longer there besides Hitler. Hitler keeps him around, sure, as a minister without duties, but Schacht's fall from grace is not done yet. In 1944, the Gestapo would actually arrest him for an alleged role in a plot to assassinate Hitler. He would then spend the rest of the war in a concentration camp. After being freed by the Allied soldiers, he would stand trial at Nuremberg alongside prominent Nazis like Hermann Göring and his later successor as economy minister Albert Speer. Yet, unlike these Nazi economy ministers, Schacht would not be found guilty of war crimes. He would be sentenced, though, to 8 years of hard labor by a German denazification court, but he would be released early in 1948. He would then found his own bank in Düsseldorf, write a book, The Magic of Money, and serve as the financial consultant for several countries.
Damn!
Ultimately, Schacht would die in 1970 at the age of 93. As for the Nazi war economy, it turns out that it could be pushed quite a bit further than ever by Göring, and later even further when Hitler's architect Albert Speer became economy minister. To push it even further, the Nazis made extensive use of resources that they captured from other nations, and to deal with labor shortages, they would increasingly turn to forced labor, slave labor, and terror. But it would not be enough. The Nazi war economy would be massively outproduced in some categories even by the British, and in most categories by the Soviets, and in all categories by the Americans. So in the end, the sad truth is that Schacht's economic miracle enabled the killing of millions. Another sad truth is that as the world once again falls into ever increasingly hostile blocs, it could be more and more likely that we will see a return of many of Schacht's oppressive policies. As nations increasingly set out to enlist economists to control their economies to maximize war output. Yet, as we've seen with Schacht, it's dangerous to throw your lot in with people eager for...
I mean, not necessarily. I mean, a lot of that is just purely because Hitler wanted, you know, more military stuff. And then also there's the thing of like, you know, Germany doesn't have Prussia, the Weimar Republic has no military to speak of whatsoever. So they've got to start from scratch and ramp up to this, you know, huge, giant, world dominating power. So like the amount of extra stuff that they needed to do is like, you know, orders of magnitude more than anyone else. Well, maybe not anyone, but, you know, any of these major powers would have to do.
War and conquest. Schacht helped the Nazis with the hope of seeing his country be restored to former glory, yet instead he would see it destroyed and cut into 2 pieces instead. If you want to know more about how the war ended from the perspective of economists, I highly recommend you check out our advertising sponsor, The Economist.
Bro, it's so interesting. Holy shit. That was so cool. That was so interesting. Oh my god. All right, so that's it. We're done for today. I'll say farewell for